7 a.m. this Monday, October 28th, right here on Jocks 94.5. We are going to recap the entire college football weekend for you. So much to get to. Paul Finebaum, 7:15. Tyler Watts, 9 o'clock today. And we'll get your thoughts on everything that happened from a massive college football weekend. Not as many big surprises this weekend, GMAC, as we've had in the past few. It's a little bit more calm in the college football world over this weekend than maybe it has been the last few.
Really chalky. And not a lot of games that were just outrageously competitive. I mean, if you really look at the games really in the first two windows, Ohio State and Nebraska was about the only one that delivered. The rest were pretty one-sided affairs. So it was a good weekend. It was you learned quite a bit about a bunch of teams, but it lacked the drama that we'd had in college football these first few weeks.
It's a question that we actually talked about in our production meeting for Read and React yesterday, and we asked it a couple of different ways as to how we might want to talk about it, and I thought it'd be interesting for us to talk about it, and it is, what teams do we feel like we truly know right now? What teams do you feel like you know their personality, you know their character, and it might be important right now, Greg, when you think about college football teams, maybe knowing what you don't know about yourself than what you think you know about yourself, because we've seen so many teams have to change. Look what Texas A&M had to do this weekend, having to make the change at quarterback. That made a massive difference, and obviously they get a huge win against LSU. Kentucky looks like they're kind of making a shift to a backup quarterback. Don't know how full time that's going to end up being, but something that is at least becoming more common with how they're running their offense and what they're having to do. Missouri didn't have Brady Cook for a full game. It just kind of feels like, Oklahoma's got a new offensive coordinator. I don't know if we know a lot of what these teams are, because the main reason the question was brought up was Auburn. And the question was brought up, okay, now Auburn's going to decide to run the football. We know who they're going to be the rest of the way through. And I kind of stopped it and said, well, hold on a second. If that's who they are, why haven't they done it the last 5 or 6 weeks? I don't know if I can just hand that to them now and say, yes, this is their personality. This is who they are. What teams right now, let's start in the SEC, do you feel like you got a pretty good feeling of, okay, that's what they are, that's who they are, and they're going to be able to do that each and every week?
Well, it makes a decent amount of sense that it's that way. All the new players, the portal, maybe not great buy-in in some places. Maybe, personalities that make things difficult for the coaching staff and things like that. So it's not that surprising. I think I know what Ole Miss is. Feel pretty good about what I know about them. I feel like I have pretty good feel for A&M at this point. I think I have a pretty good feel for Georgia at this point. I feel like I have a good beat on what South Carolina is and what they need to win the game. And I think I have a good beat on Tennessee. But other than that, I don't have a whole lot of insight as to how I really characterize some of these teams. I think I have a good beat on Alabama, but I think there's a lot more in the tank. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot more there that we're just not getting from the offense right now. Yeah, it's in there, and I think it can come to the surface. It's just a little bit hit or miss. But for all intents and purposes, no. I think your point is a well illustrated version of where we're at in the sport right now, because it's a lot harder to get totally on board with some of these teams when you know the inconsistencies lie within.
Well, even then, so let's take some of the teams that you said, you feel like you may know them now, you may feel good about them now. I don't think we thought that the A&M defensive line was going to be this disruptive. We thought they were going to be solid, but we didn't know they were going to be able to operate like this, and just that team was going to be playing like they were defensively, and that the offensive line would kind of grow into what they've grown into. I was very uncertain about that offensive line. You look at Alabama, I think that we thought that from a run perspective, they'd be a team that would be able to lean on that just a little bit more. Now, I thought this was their most physical game of the year offensively. We'll get into it. We'll dive into it. But I still think there's a little bit of back and forth on who they are offensively. We didn't think Arkansas would be able to put up 58 points on an SEC team. and a quarterback would throw for 5 touchdowns in a game. So even some of the teams that we feel like we have a decent feel on, like we didn't think LSU would be this pass heavy. I think LSU, and Brian Kelly said it after the game, like we need to be more balanced. Well, we've been saying that for 5 weeks. I don't know how you just figured that out, but you like hand the ball off every 7 plays. It's just I think some of these teams that it may be even more so that they may be finding their personality, but it's just different than what we kind of thought they were going to be able to lean on going into the season. I think Texas is a great example of this. I think they're a team with a ton of speed, a ton of athleticism. I think they have a big offensive line, but I don't know how good the offensive line really is. And some of that is they don't give them a chance to be good.
I thought size was all you needed. I thought if you just said, look how big, you're in great shape.
That's it. That's all you got to have. That, and then get guys who were previously on a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line, and you're automatically good. That's the only things you have to do. And but I mean, I thought that would be a group that could lean on the run, and they don't. They kind of struggle to be a downhill run team. Now they had 2 big counters on 3rd and longs that they converted, which was impressive late. Vanderbilt totally different than maybe what we thought they were going to be. So, and I wonder if that's going to continue for a couple of more weeks. Like, how close is it going to be to the playoff that we really feel like we know, all right, that team can definitely do that, and there's not going to be a lot that people can do about it. Like, they're going to be able to do that against just about anybody in the country, because some of it does feel like it's still changing. And we talked about injuries. You lose a guy this day and age, and it's a lot different. You go to a different quarterback, you go to a different left tackle, all of a sudden your offense changes. Same thing defensively. You lose a pass rusher, you're all of a sudden giving up all kind of yards. So it feels like it's going to make this last month of the season a lot more exciting.
It should be exciting. I think a lot of teams are in desperate need of a bye week just for a reset too. I mean, I think that's going to be hugely beneficial to a number of teams. Missouri, Bama. I think Georgia was in need of a bye week this past weekend. I mean, I think there's a lot of teams whose bye week this week, LSU, whose bye week this week could not come at a better time, or last week in the example of Georgia. I mean, there's a bunch of teams that are off this week. I don't even know how many SEC teams are going, but a bye week could not be more important at this point of the year, just to kind of give yourself a reset. All right, home stretch. Let's look forward and figure out how we can go about things to get back to doing the things that we want to do them. So I think this is a really big week for a lot of teams to take advantage of the bye, to kind of collectively catch your breath and be ready to rock and roll.
All right, so your SEC games coming up this weekend, you'll get Vanderbilt at Auburn, 11:45 SEC Network. You'll get Ole Miss at Arkansas, 11 a.m. ESPN. Maine at Oklahoma, 1:30 ESPN Plus. Florida, Georgia, of course, 2:30 ABC. Massachusetts at Mississippi State, 3:15 SEC Network. The game that you'll be on, Texas A&M is at South Carolina, 6:30 p.m. on ABC. And then a 6:45 SEC Network kick with who else but Kentucky at Tennessee.
Not at Kentucky, though.
It is not in Lexington. No. It is not.
So one thing that's very different.
It's a little, well, we've been in Knoxville a pretty good, decent amount the last 2 years too. So it's, but you mean,
that's a good game if Kentucky wasn't going in the wrong dang direction. If you were to tell me after the Ole Miss game with how Kentucky managed the tempo, I would have said that's a tricky one for Tennessee. The week before Georgia, coming out of the bye week, like sitting there thinking, all right, there's a bunch of reasons why that game could be a little dicey, but my goodness, is Kentucky going in the wrong direction right now?
I mean, I don't even know what to make. And here's the crazy part. You put the film on yesterday. It's not just miserable performances across the board with all the front seven. It's a guy out of a gap here, a guy getting a little bit too high here, a guy getting upfield here, and you just somebody overruns there. And next thing you know, Jarquez Hunter, 4th most rushing yards in Auburn football history in a single game. So we'll break that one down. We'll break Alabama down, a lot to get to. But, yes, Kentucky, I think, is one of the biggest question marks in the SEC right now, because this is 2 straight weeks. They have not looked like a Mark Stoops coach football team. Just have not looked like it. And the offense, you talk about searching for an identity, trying to figure out who you are, what you are. Kentucky is probably having as big of an issue with that as just about anybody in college football right now. But let's go to We'll start with Auburn getting their first SEC win of the season. GMAC 24-10. They get to 3-5. Same record now as Kentucky, which is kind of wild to think about. Jarquez Hunter, 23 carries, 278 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Brock Vandegrift struggled 9-17, 120 yards, threw a pick. Gavin Wimsatt came in. He goes 3 of 10 for 34 yards. Keandre Lambert-Smith, pretty good game for Auburn, 4 for 53, had a touchdown reception. Auburn wins the turnover battle. They win the rushing yard differential. 50 carries for 326 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. As a team, the Kentucky Wildcats run 27 times for 70 yards. It's just, it's rough in Lexington right now. There is no doubt about it. But this is one, we've talked about it, Greg. If Auburn can get that first one out of the way, could be able to build upon it, could be able to find some real momentum moving forward.
Yeah, I think it was a great performance. A lot to feel good about. Everyone talking about the call it and run. It's like, I got to be honest. I felt like I still saw a lot of RPO. Everyone talking about, oh, see, that's what happens when you hand it to them. There's still a decent amount of RPO in the plan. Did you not see it the same way?
There was definitely RPO.
So I think it was like one of those, everyone's like, see, oh, Hugh finally's listening to us. I'm like, hang on a second. Just watch it. Like, go back and take a peek at it. Like, it wasn't like they called power and you're running it come hell or high water. You could have 12 guys in the box and they're going to run it. No, it was still a lot of RPO. It's just the way Kentucky structured their defense is that they were a little bit slow with their eyes, and it really wasn't a situation where you were going to want to be, handing it off a lot against some of those looks. I mean, I still think that Auburn's offense is Auburn's offense, and nothing really changed. It's just the looks they were given defensively are what changed and what led to a few more handoffs.
I'll say this. I didn't think Peyton Thorne had an exceptional game, but I thought he made really good decisions for the majority of that game. The interception was rough. I don't think there's any two ways around that. I think he just kind of made a pre-snap decision. That's where he was going to deliver the football, is what it is. But you got that out of the way early. And then from a read perspective, and then like you said, pulling the ball out, a couple of the RPOs, I thought he made some good decisions on when to hand the ball off. Also, good decisions on letting plays die and just throwing the ball away. And when he left the pocket, Greg, he felt like he left the pocket earlier than when he has in the past, and not trying to stay in there, hang in there, make something happen, looking around left and right, and then all of a sudden take a sack or fumble, something of that nature. He just kind of said, you know what, I'm out of here. It felt much more, and I know this probably wasn't it, but it felt much more like, okay, one's not there, two's not there, I'm just going to get out of here and go. And I thought from a decision-making standpoint,
the first
he was a little bit
interception,
better.
I thought he played on time, honestly, really well the whole game except for the interception.
Yeah, like I said, I can't excuse that one.
He was just late.
It was just bad.
He was just way too late, and I don't know if he got confused. Like, I looked at the overhang guys, and he's throwing a curl. Like, I don't think he saw the squeeze player outside. I mean, it just wasn't. I don't know. That was bad. But I thought he had a solid game. I thought, what I thought was better? Protection, for the most part.
It was. He had pretty clean pockets a good amount of time. Yeah.
Early it wasn't great, but I felt like the O-line settled in, and it was noticeably better. I mean, noticeably, and look, it's not like you're going against the most dynamic group in college football, but they can get after you, and I thought they did a pretty good job of, I don't know, giving him enough time to operate. And I thought there were some holes open in the run game too. I thought there were some things to like about how the O-line performed. I thought it was considerably better than it was.
I thought you got better performance from the tight ends. 13 actually, wanted to block a little bit, gave you some decent effort. 86 helped you out in the run game. And we've talked about it, that the combination now with 55 in the game, Brandon Joyner at left guard, you're fine at center, you're fine at right guard, you know what you're going to get there, and you bump Dylan Wade out to left tackle. He struggled with some pass sets. He's getting his feet a little bit tangled in pass sets, got to keep his feet apart, losing his base. However, he's not a liability. And you're not just going to get the straight whiffs that you were getting before. And I think he gives you better effort in the run game. And he can at least get attached in the run game and stay on somebody and, lock in, drive his feet, and give you a little bit of a push, whereas that wasn't happening. You're getting pretty much a whiff most of the time previously. And so now that helps the run game open up a little bit. I thought Cam Coleman actually got there and blocked a little bit Saturday night, helped out a little bit. So I thought collectively it felt like the group blocked a little bit better. I thought the offensive line did block better, but you got better effort from the tight ends. You got better effort from some of the receivers, and all that sort of helped it go. And it is a little bit of a momentum offense. Once one thing starts going, then you can sort of add the next thing. I liked how they varied up some of the blocking schemes. I don't know if you noticed this, but they have the little, you have the tight end who's kind of a Y, so he looks like an H back sort of, and they would run split zone where he comes across the line of scrimmage. They run zone the opposite direction. Well, then once Kentucky kind of adjusted to that, then they would just keep him in the zone scheme and they would kind of run it all flat, but you had an extra blocker backside. So those cutback runs started coming, and that sort of allowed things to bounce upfield and be able to get going. You mentioned the RPOs on top of it. They had that going. And then quarterback would keep a couple here and there, and you had that defense, kind of on their heels a little bit. It was misfit often by the Kentucky defense, and that's disappointing because you've got some veteran linebackers that you would think that wouldn't happen with. But when you're changing up your zone blocking schemes, and then you're going zone scheme, gap scheme, and you're kind of getting things going back and forth a little bit, and you got a running back that's not afraid to lean on you, and they finally let him lean. That's what happened. You can have a pretty good day at the yard. And Coach Freeze didn't make the trip Friday night, showed up on Saturday, was able to coach the team after having some sort of a stomach bug. And I know the kids were glad that he was there because they get their first SEC win. That's a big step for Auburn. So we'll go into it a little bit further across the course of the show today. Get your thoughts on it. 24-10 Auburn gets the win. Alabama also gets a win against Missouri in dominant fashion, 34-0. Both those teams now 6-2. Missouri runs the ball 39 times, 167 yards. Bama runs the ball 37 times, 271 yards. 4 rushing touchdowns for Bama, Greg. I thought this was their most physical game of the year offensively.
I really liked their game. I'm curious your thoughts on it. This was a very big perimeter run game. A lot of it was perimeter run. Do you think that had a lot to do with Missouri, or did that have more to do with what Alabama ultimately wants to become in the run game? Because that's the first I'd really seen a strong commitment to quarterback run outside of the quarterback pin and pull sweep stuff in the red zone. I mean, because to me, I thought this team, watching South Carolina, watching really Tennessee, watching, what other games where they were pretty committed to the run game? I mean, you couldn't really be that committed to the run game against Vanderbilt because of the circumstances of being behind pretty much the whole game. But, I mean, it just felt like more of a perimeter run game. Is that where this offense is going, or is that just game plan specific?
I think it had more to do with Vanderbilt or with Missouri because you knew that you were going to get a lot of movement inside. They were probably going to muck things up on the interior of that offensive line, so most plays were probably going to end up bouncing anyway. But I thought they did come back and get in between the tackles later in the game. And Justice Haynes specifically did a nice job of kind of getting downhill on a couple of inside zone plays and getting between the tackles. I still think that they believe that they can make some money there. I don't know if they're going to live there. It's a little too late in the year to be all of a sudden saying they're going to live in between the tackles, but I think they have the ability to do that. Also, I think with the bonus bigs you bring to the table, Robbie Utes had another really good game. Robbie Utes has got to start getting some real credit. Like, not just kind of like an extra guy or a happy-go-lucky guy or like nice-to-have guy. He's got to start getting some real credit for some of the things that he does. And I think we talk about him. I think we try to tell people about him. But he's just super valuable to that team. And I think with he and Dupree and what they offer on the outside to be able to help seal some of those edges, I'm not talking about just, decleating or pancaking guys, which he did that in this game. But sealing those edges, walling guys off on the outside, those two really good at it. And that's what also can help you get to the perimeter. So I think those are what had to do with it most. But that may have been Tyler Booker's best game in an Alabama uniform. I mean, I thought he was exceptional. I thought Brailsford played great. I thought after giving up the sack early, Proctor kind of got his act together and played pretty good down the stretch. The right side was okay, not necessarily dominant, but I thought they gave good effort. But like I said, I thought physically, when you combine all of it, I thought that was the Alabama offense's best game of the year. and it's definitely something that I think they can continue to build on moving forward. I think that that's something they're going to look at and say, all right, this is a lot of what we can be. We're going to continue to try to be that. You guys know as we move on through football season and the weather cools, make sure your HVAC system is ready for the cold weather on the way. For long-term reliability, a Train Home Comfort System is your answer. And to give you peace of mind right now, you can receive up to a 10-year warranty on parts and labor with select Train Comfort Systems. To learn more, visit train.com. All right, when we come back, Paul Finebaum joins us to discuss Alabama's win over the weekend and Auburn's win. I don't think we've talked about an Auburn win with Paul. We'll do it next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Monday, October 28th, right here on Jocks 94.5. He joins us each and every week. You can see him on the SEC Network Saturday mornings. You can hear him right here on WJOX, 2 to 6 p.m. weekdays. Thanks to our friends at Craneworks. It's Paul Finebaum.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah! The big dog's got it.
Paul Finebaum on Mac and Cube in the morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it, the big dog's got it. Now, Paul Finebaum.
Paul, always great to have you in on a Monday. I'm not sure what a lot of folks were thinking about this Auburn game, specifically when we saw that Hugh Freeze wasn't with the team on Friday. He arrived Saturday. And they're able to get a pretty good win against Kentucky. Look good, especially on the ground. What does this do for you as far as maybe what's now on the table for him to accomplish this year with the Auburn Tigers?
It felt like that win saved the season, Cole, because losing to a really down Kentucky team, I think, would have just finished everything off. Right now, you can look at the schedule and find wins if you want. You can be pessimistic if you want, but there's nothing like just ending a losing streak and ending what feels like or felt like a hopeless feeling. And I think that's really significant. Everyone's aware of what Kentucky has done, and that's not really the point. The fact that Auburn could go on the road, look like a real football team and not give games away, I think is significant. And then now you can start going, oh, hey, listen, we did this, we did that, we almost did that, and if the turnovers stop and if things can get buttoned down, then maybe the season can still have some momentum. And that's really what you're talking about. When you lose as many games as Auburn did early, you're not talking about playoffs. You're not talking about very much of anything other than trying to build momentum into the offseason, which is where Auburn is right now.
Paul, what do you make of the, I guess, the overall state of college football? Just when you think you start to know somebody, it feels like they surprise you in a good way or bad way. And then just when you feel like you start to feel really good about somebody, they let you down. When you start to feel really bad about somebody, they surprise you. So what do you make of just how, I guess, unpredictable the season is across the board?
Well, I think from a fan standpoint, it's been phenomenal. Saturdays are just like diving into a tank and not coming out for 12 hours because you're really not 100% sure what you're going to get. And I like that. I mean, there's just been too many seasons, Greg, where we even in late September, we're going, okay, we're 8 weeks away from the LSU Alabama game. And that's all we talk about. We're now, it's really, it's hard to know what's going to happen next. And it makes the job the most difficult for the pundits who are wrong more often these days than they've ever been, which makes the naysayers happy because then they can blame those who predict football games for everything. But I think it's great. There are a lot of reasons for it that have been discussed ad nauseum. But just within the SEC race, it's hard to wrap your arms around it right now. But that's what we wanted with the 12-team playoff and an expanded SEC.
Do you view Alabama as maybe not just a playoff team, but a team that can make a deep playoff run at the moment, Paul?
I do now, and I know what I said a week ago, but that's exactly what Greg was talking about there. Is what you said 7 days ago may not be operative any longer because of where we are. It doesn't take much, and there's a fine line for the top teams, and obviously Alabama started the season as one of the elite teams. There's a very fine line, but I don't know why anybody who follows Alabama really should act like this is something that they've never encountered. The last 3 seasons have been just like this. 2 years ago, after the Tennessee loss, it was a matter of survival. Could Alabama run the table? It didn't. It lost, obviously, to LSU in overtime. And last year, from the second week of the season, Alabama was holding on. And I think that's one reason why I think this program at Alabama is in good shape. And Greg was sitting at the same table I was in July when we were talking to Nick Saban about I asked the question, did he think if things went haywire, the noise and all the distractions would affect his team? And he said no. I mean, he was emphatic because that's how he recruits players. That's how he processes them. And that's, there's a little bit of difference between this team and last year. But ultimately, we'll find out in a week and a half. But they survived last weekend. A lot of reasons for it, by the way. But that's not the point. They looked. The final score made them look very good, and suddenly a playoff team that was maybe on the edge now has a chance to go beat a team that looks maybe in a more chaotic situation than Alabama was a week ago.
When you look at Alabama and just the youth that they have playing certain positions, some of the guys that are a little banged up, you look at where they're at. Like Paul, right now, the game were played tomorrow, who do you feel better about, Alabama or LSU?
Alabama, and it's because of things that we look past. But and I'll defer to you, Greg. You told me 2 weeks in a row that they're getting better, they're looking better, and I'm like, and I'm going, really, where? Because I'm paying attention too much to the result, not what's going on to get to that result. And all Alabama ever had to do was take care of a couple of things. And I know fans are still going, well, we looked terrible in the first half. Well, good. You won, 34-0? And by the way, I mean, I'm not coming out of this game impressed with Missouri, but they were a legitimately respected team. And injuries made them very, very, very easy, very beatable, but still, this wasn't beating a directional team. It wasn't shutting them out. So I do feel pretty good about them. And I mentioned LSU, and I know we have 12 days to get ready, but what happened in the second half, I mean, how much of that was LSU? How much of it was A&M? How much of it was a confluence of being on the road, and when things start to go haywire, you start to think, well, we let a lot of points get away in the first half, which seems to be a problem for LSU in big games. But ultimately, back a long way back to your question, I feel very good about Alabama right now in that game, and I really do believe that's the game that will determine the season. I know you can't, not supposed to, but I'm going to look past everything else on the schedule. If Alabama beats LSU in Baton Rouge, they are going to the playoffs and will have a chance to make noise.
Paul Finebaum with us on the Buyers Right Hotline. He joins us every Monday. Thanks to our friends at Craneworks. Couple teams, as you mentioned, with Kentucky that are going the opposite direction, it feels like, in the SEC right now. Missouri seems to be one of those. They don't score a point in Tuscaloosa. Where do you view this football team here heading into the final month of the season?
Oh, I think Missouri is cooked. I mean, there's no way back for them. I'm looking at it more from a big picture. What does it mean to where you started the season? They can still win some games, but I am underwhelmed by them, and quite frankly, have been underwhelmed by them the whole season. And they're not the only one. I mean, probably the school that I'm shaking my head at the most, Cole, is Kentucky. It just this isn't a new thing. This is something that started last year too, and I think if you start to look back on this season, that kind of back to the original question here a minute ago about the surprising aspects of the season, are we going to look back, assuming Ole Miss misses the playoffs by one game, and that would mean they would lose to Georgia in 3 weeks? Will we be able to explain after the season Kentucky going into Oxford and winning? I mean, I'm not sure we'll ever be able to figure that one out.
Let me just tell you, as someone that was on the call for that game, it felt as weird as it gets in the building as it does now looking back at it. It was a strange day for sure. And one that I think we'll be kicking ourselves. Paul, we'd always said that a 2-loss team's in a great spot to get into the playoff. Now that things are starting to kind of unfold, you have an undefeated in Pitt, which still has 2 difficult games left, so I'm not putting them in by any stretch. You have an undefeated Indiana that really has 1 game left where they'll be an underdog, and that's against Ohio State. They'll actually, according to my sources, they're going to be a 7-point favorite against Michigan at home. Think about where Michigan is at this point with that information percolating. And then you have a team like BYU, who is in a pretty good spot, who's undefeated. But every game they're favored in all of them, but it's narrow margins in pretty much all of them as well. So when we fast forward, and let's just say those 3 teams all suffer 1 loss and they're being measured against a 2-loss SEC team, who do you think will be given the benefit of the doubt?
Well, I think it depends on the SEC team. It had to be if it were Missouri, I wouldn't give Missouri the benefit of the doubt. But I don't.
Let's just say Ole Miss. Let's say Ole Miss. That would require a win against Georgia. So let's use Missouri. I mean, maybe it is Missouri.
Well, I wouldn't go with Missouri, but Ole Miss is a better question, and I'll tell you why I would go with Ole Miss in that scenario. Because they would have a win over Georgia. And that's the one thing I think some of those other schools are not going to be able to have. Now, obviously, Pitt's in a more precarious situation than Indiana, because Indiana is at some point going to have to, beat a good team. But you're right. I mean, all the things we thought we were sure of, we're not so sure of anymore. But the field is getting a little crowded, and if you're an SEC team on the edge, which there could be a number of them, it's not a good feeling. That's why next week is so important. And I know we often you more than me sleepwalk through that first reveal, Greg. But at least we'll get an indicator of what the people that matter most think about these schools, as opposed to AP voters who are very brand heavy.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Paul. I don't think I'm gonna be sleepwalking through any of them this year. I really mean that, and I'm trying not to be like, oh man, this first playoff reveal is so important, because I know that it's just the first of 5. But I do feel like there's 27 teams vying for 12 spots right now, which to me, we've never had anyone close to that at this point of the season, to see that many teams that are in the mix. And it's a real possibility that we have some chaos down the stretch. It's really nuts. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, and I think we've sat there on that first Tuesday in November a number of times going, okay, what are we doing here? It's a TV show, but it's not, because it is a TV show, I should say. But it's what, and again, it takes a while to get through all that. But it's a baseline, and that's what we need right now, because I don't think anybody, including the computers, really have a clue at the moment which way it's going to go.
I think you're right, Paul. It's going to be interesting to see and fun to watch. We appreciate the time each and every week. Look forward to doing it again next week, and I'll see you here in a couple hours.
Enjoy it. I'll see you, Kel. Thanks.
Paul Finebaum, ESPN, the SEC Network, joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. He's with us each and every week, thanks to our friends at Craneworks. And it's something that I kind of plan on getting into a little bit later in the week, Greg. But you look at the AP poll, there are a couple of teams that just don't need to be there, don't belong there. The fact that Missouri's still ranked, I think it's a little bit odd.
Come on.
A couple of things that just stick out. But seeing what this committee thinks of not really Missouri, but a couple of other teams that you brought up, it is going to be fascinating. And it can always change. It can always be very different from week to week. But that first thought of kind of where everybody's going to be placed is going to be interesting to see. There's no doubt.
It's going to be wild, man. I mean, it really is. And I don't think you can put a ton of stock into it. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say it's, the end all be all by any stretch of the imagination, but man alive, dude, it's pretty crazy. It really is. It's pretty crazy to think just how big this potential reveal could be, and the ultimate fallout that could come of it.
Absolutely. Well, reveal to our listeners just what Polar Bear Services can do for them.
Well, Polar Bear Services can do so many different things for you around your home. It's really great to know that you have the pros at Polar Bear Services that'll get you taken care of, and will have you in a spot where you can feel good about some of the work that you're having done around your home. One, these are guys that you could trust. They've been in my house multiple times. I know that they'll take great care of you. They're HVAC specialists. The cold weather's coming. We have daylight savings coming up a week from yesterday. I mean, we are in it as the clock turns to November here momentarily. And you need to have that HVAC system ready to roll for the cold months ahead. So call them today. And they also can help with plumbing. They can also help you with your electrical services, including whole home generator install. So remember, if you have a problem with your heat or air, just pick up the phone and call the Bear. That's 205-497-BEAR. That's 497-BEAR.
All right, when we come back, we'll revisit the Alabama and Auburn wins and begin to get some of your thoughts on those next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. Monday, October 28th, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Talk a little bit more on Alabama's win against Missouri. 34-0, Crimson Tide gets to 6-2. Missouri goes to 6-2 as well. Brady Cook starts the game, Greg, 7 of 12, 30 yards, dinged up again. Drew Pine comes in, 6 of 12, 42 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. The first pick to Malachi Moore was just, I can't even, there's no way to even describe it. Beyond atrocious. Second game in a row that he just, it looks like he hasn't even been out there. And all of a sudden, I mean, for a guy that's played 7 years of college football, you'd feel like that he would have a little more wherewithal about how to manage things, but it has not looked good. And once that happened, you had to think it was probably not going to be too heavy of a lift for Alabama.
No, wasn't too concerned. You could tell the offensive play calling, not that it got conservative, but you could kind of tell it's like, all right, hey, boys, we got this sucker in the bag if we just do what we do. So I think when you look at where the game plan went, if we're looking at Bama, I think defensively you feel great about it. I know that, look, you're not in control of who's out there for you, but I feel like we've been saying this now for 3 weeks. There has been progress made defensively in each of the last 3 weeks. Think they're definitely trending in the right direction. You got some guys that are starting to emerge. I feel like the linebackers are playing better, much better. And I feel like the secondary is starting to kind of get a little more comfortable passing off some stuff from time to time. I mean, they motion. You're not seeing nearly as much communication. It just seems more seamless. They're still not offering up like a ridiculous amount of variety. I hope that that's coming because I don't think you can play simple coverages against LSU. I think you're going to have to change things up because Nussmeier is too smart and their receivers are too good. So it'll be an increased challenge on that group here in a couple weeks, but you got to feel decent about the progress that's been made. And you just, you want to see the pass rush to continue to emerge and get better as well. But all things considered, I thought it was a sound plan. I thought it was a well-executed plan and one that you should feel good about. I really do.
Kalen DeBoer, Alabama head coach, just on his takeaways from the Crimson Tide's win against Missouri.
Every win is important, like the way the guys prepared all week long and got a chance to give them a chance to go out there and have success. Didn't get a lot of points right away, but kept applying pressure in different ways once we got the field position flipped, especially I think after the interception, the momentum swinging. So, some good team football there. 3 takeaways as I see it, and none as far as giving up. So, there's always areas we can correct and be better. We got to have some better awareness with some things, just, living in the gray area on some stuff, and it's hurting us just from really taking a big step. And I feel like we're just right on the edge. And so we'll get a chance to hash through those areas, those gray areas that a lot of times lead to penalties or just misexecution. It just can't be that every little thing that is new or happens to us is something we have to learn, a hard lesson from. And it might be just execution of a play. I'm not even talking about penalties all the time. So go back to work. And I know that where the guys' heads are at with what they did this last week, with what happened today. A good time for us to have this week to get ready for LSU and, the bye. You can always find a reason for it to be a good time, and I feel it's a good time just our guys to recover physically and mentally and make the final run.
All right, so that's Alabama's head coach, Kalen DeBoer. Also, Coach DeBoer on the severity of the injury to wide receiver Cole Adams.
Yeah, lower extremity. Probably going to be, so we'll do more evaluation, but it feels like it's going to be something that might be a little bit of time where he'll be missed. So we'll probably have more on Monday with that, but that's what it feels like right now.
All right, so a couple of updates from Kalen DeBoer. We will we'll get to a break, come back, give you our top 3 of the day, and then after that, we will begin to open up your response to Auburn's win in Lexington, Alabama's win at home against Missouri. All that next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 7:50 right here on Jocks 94.5. Before we get to our top three, which we bring you each and every day, let you know about our friends at Royal Automotive. You can get tailgate ready. Experience how car buying should be. 4 Royal-owned dealerships in one location. Selection and savings unmatched. Royal, only place to find over 19 unique truck and SUV options in one spot. Now through Halloween, it's right around the corner. Get up to $14,000 off select 2024 GMC Sierra models. 0% for 60 months is back on 2024 Volkswagen Tiguan models. Sign and drive. Select 2024, 2025 Volvo XC40, XC60, XC90 models with 0 down, 0 due at signing, and 0 for your first payment. Certain restrictions apply. Go see my friends at Royal. They're going to help you get the best deal available. Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Automart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia Hills, all at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 of Vestavia. Online at royalautomotive.net. Make Royal your first and last stop when car shopping. And remember, for every ride, there's Royal. Damian, what's on tap for our top three today?
Well, we'll keep it to the NFL, and I got top 3 performances from over the weekend, and it's going to be quarterback heavy, quarterback driven, but they definitely stole the show yesterday across the NFL. Let's start in Denver, Colorado. How about Bo Nix for the Denver Broncos in a 28-7 victory over the Carolina Panthers? He's a rookie now. He's a rookie. 28 for 37. 284 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, and then added 1 on the ground for 4 touchdowns. And it looks like Bo Nix might mess around and lead the Denver Broncos to the playoffs, man.
He is doing some good things.
And it was against the Panthers.
About to say,
Totally fair.
Liberty, who Bo Nix played in the bowl game, is actually plus 2.5 against the Panthers.
Hey, Bo's return to Bryce Young. I mean, in a loss, but he looked like he was okay. Look better. Maybe the time on the bench was okay. But
I'm interested to see the other two because I definitely feel like there were 3 quarterback performances better, but go ahead.
no, oh yeah, there was one. How about taking to the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and an absolute nail biter between the Washington Commanders and the Chicago Bears. Jaden Daniels only had 1 touchdown, and it was the biggest touchdown in the ball game because it was a Hail Mary, and his performance should not go unwavered. 21 of 38, 326 passing yards. And again, 1 touchdown, added 54 yards on the ground as well. Marcus Mariota was ready. I will say this because, Jaden Daniels coming off of the rib injury, but they do knock off the Chicago Bears in a battle of the rookies, 18-15.
He didn't need that. I will say this, like a lot of folks have sort of made fun of Romo recently because, he's gotten away from guessing the plays and everything. I thought his commentary on the last couple of plays in that game was perfect and spot on.
Yeah.
Because he told you like, hey, you need more yards here. They need to throw the quick out, and then they throw the quick out and they get a little bit of time. Talks about how he needed to buy more time to let everybody else get down there. Like you said, Damian, he mentioned that, hey, you've got Mariota can come in if he needs to. Just that feels like a really easy situation. Like, hey, drop back, throw football. But he took you through a lot of different portions of it that I thought were really cool for the viewer to hear.
That I do agree with.
Moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. But, Greg, this one is specifically for you.
Oh, boy.
How about your boy, old Zach Robinson, dialing it up for one Kirk Cousins yesterday to solidify the Atlanta Falcons as the number 1 team in the NFC South? 23 for 29, 276, and 4 touchdowns. And how about this? Kirk Cousins had his highest performance in rushing as well, as he went 3 for
11.
16 yards, baby.
Wow.
Longest rush was 13 yards. But the Atlanta Falcons moved to 5-3 as they knocked off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-26. Honorable mention Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 carries, 127 yards.
How, with the greatest pregame interview ever done in NFL history, the greatest team huddle speech ever caught on camera in NFL history,
They ain't got no decal.
and the greatest postgame interview ever caught on camera, 27 of 41, 334, 3 touchdowns in a win against the Ravens. How is Jameis Winston not in this top 3?
It's the Browns, man.
I don't care. And like he said, don't do it for your logo. Well, we don't have a logo. So Do it for the guy next to you.
There is a
How?
guy in Michigan that said you only get one shot, Damian.
That's what I'm saying.
not
He
miss a
might,
chance
that
to
might
blow.
actually get him another shot now
They should.
because
I mean,
of the shot that he just took.
They got no other
and hit
choice.
on.
They got no other choice now. But yeah, that's no mission by me. My apologies.
Wow.
Felt intentional.
Wow.
Felt really intentional.
He ain't need a dub. The crowd did. He didn't.
And no Jared Goff either. Interesting.
He didn't have to do much. He didn't have to do anything, to be
Okay,
honest.
all right.
Well, he did throw
52-14.
Jahmyr Gibbs in there as a
Yeah. He had a old
Honorable
70-yard
mention.
run. Old 70-yard run
Okay.
against the Tennessee Titans.
You don't see 52-14 in the NFL very often.
You don't. We don't have to
Be
bring it
honest
up.
with you.
It's all
That
good.
doesn't happen much. Titans go down to the Lions 52-14 yesterday.
That's it?
That was all.
Oh, it could have been worse. They took their foot off the gas early on. And by early, I mean like 2 minutes into the third
Second
quarter.
drive.
Can we also just, honestly, I felt like number one maybe should have been the fact that not only did the Lions win 52-14 yesterday, they did it on 225 total yards of offense.
Yeah, they did. They did.
225
Yes.
total for the game.
And pure chocolate.
Hey, the Lions are a great team. Congratulations.
They are 6-1.
Mhm.
And you can reverse that and get the Titans.
Ooh, too soon.
No, it's a fact.
All right, that's our top 3 NFL performances from over the weekend. We get to those each and every Monday. When we come back, we'll begin to get to your feedback. 800-239-9569. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. Talking Alabama and Auburn wins right after this. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Glad you're with us. Talk a couple of SEC games from over the weekend. Auburn and Alabama get wins over the weekend. We talked a little bit about Auburn's win against Kentucky, and there were parts of it that looked a little bit different. It was definitely different because the head coach initially doesn't travel with the team. Hugh Freeze was sick, doesn't make the trip on Friday, and flies up Saturday morning, gets with the team and able to coach them to a win. And Coach Freeze, obviously, just happy to be able to get that first SEC win.
Man, just thank the good Lord. We've obviously had our chances to win a lot of football games this year, and for whatever reason, lack of confidence or not making the right call or not making the right play or things just haven't gone our way. And tonight, our kids found a way to win, and I just couldn't be happier for them, for the Auburn family. We have the greatest fan base, the greatest fans, and the greatest administration. Everybody is so supportive, even in a year where it's been disappointing at times, and just couldn't be more thankful. And then our kids and staff, they just keep coming to work, and heck, had a great chance to lay down tonight, down 10-0 on the road, and just there's no quit in them, and just really, really proud of everyone's effort tonight, and just a tough place to play against a really good defensive football team, and thought our kids handled everything really well.
You look at those opportunities that he brought up, Greg, a chance to kind of lay down, a chance to not continue to fight back. That Auburn football team does, and they get that first SEC win of the season. Do you give them a lot of credit for this? Do you look at where Kentucky is? Is it hard for you to feel great about what Auburn did because of what we've seen from Kentucky the last 2 weeks now?
I don't think you can take away from it. You just went on the road and won an SEC game. I mean, goodness gracious, it's like everybody that wants to be mad is just choosing to be mad nowadays in the SEC. It's like you get a win on the road against a team that has a lot of veteran players that really needed it. I mean, if you look at Kentucky's stretch, it's not a foregone conclusion they're going to the postseason. I mean, they got Tennessee next week. They still have a couple more challenging games on their schedule. They still have Texas on their schedule. I mean, Kentucky had to have that one, and they didn't get it. So I think you feel good about it, regardless of where Kentucky's at.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you have to feel good about it, and definitely one that when you look at running the football, we've kind of wondered, okay, when is it going to turn to Jarquez Hunter, and he's going to be able to carry the load, be the guy. And Jarquez Hunter now fourth most rushing yards in Auburn football history in a single game. So this is what we kind of have wanted to see. This is what we thought we were going to get more of. And now Jarquez Hunter goes out and becomes that guy. Said after the game, he was just tired of losing.
To be honest, I got tired of losing, man. I'm tired of losing. I told Coach, I said, we're going to find a way to win this game this week. It don't matter how we do it or how it gets done. We're going to find a way, man. I try to play my hardest for my teammates and the coaches. I try to give them my all. Every play I got, I mean, I try to take advantage of my opportunities that I got today. I mean, I try to wear them out.
So, and I feel like they did wear Kentucky out, specifically on the ground. So Jarquez Hunter's rushing yards in this game, I mentioned, fourth most in a game in Auburn history, 23 for 278. Bo Jackson went for 290. Trey Mason went for 304. Most yards in a game in Auburn football history rushing. Anybody?
Trey Mason.
I'm gonna go ahead and assume.
I'm assuming Bo.
No, it's
not
Trey
Bo
Mason.
Jackson. It is not Trey Mason. He would be second with 304.
I just thought he'd have the top two. Nick Marshall.
Cam Newton.
Kenny Irons.
Cadillac.
Curtis Kuykendall. 307 yards.
Oh, CK.
Yep.
Wait, what year was this?
Curtis K-U-Y Kendall. I may be actually butchering the name.
He set the rushing record back in November 24th in 1944, baby.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, the modern era. Okay.
Toting that thing.
But that was for API, not for Auburn.
He did it against Miami, though.
Yeah, he did. 38-19 win over Miami. They couldn't stop him.
Level of competition up there. I mean, he got it done on the ground. So, Hunter, first Auburn player with 200 rush yards, 2 rush touchdowns in a game since Kerryon Johnson did it in 2017. Snaps a 4-game losing streak. That was tied for its longest losing streak in 2 seasons under Hugh Freeze. Auburn's won 19 of their last 20 against Kentucky. So it's this feels like something you can build on now. Greg, you've got the offensive line. I think this is what you ride with the rest of the season. You got a couple of tight ends that look like they're more than willing to help. They can get out there and do some things physically. They can kind of get this going. I think you know what you have at receiver. It's been clean sometimes it hasn't. And if the quarterback can protect the football, you might be able to be dangerous here the rest of the way through. So I saw a lot of things offensively that they can continue to attach things to, maybe take a few things away from, and be a dangerous team down the stretch. What kind of confidence did this give you with what Auburn might be able to do the rest of the way?
I feel good about what they've been doing all year long. The problem with Auburn is that the bigger the moment, the more they teamingly wet the bed. And I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure how you fix that, because you can't manufacture, critical moments in practice. You just got to go out there and do it. You got to go out there and you got to live it, and you got to do it, and you got to apply the lessons of execution that you work on in practice. And the bigger the moment, you can't just have a panic attack in the middle of the game. And seemingly that's what they always seem to do in the first 7 games of the year. So here's hoping that's a thing of the past. Now that they clearly went up, they took care of their business. It doesn't get any easier. I mean, I think this Vanderbilt game this week's really dangerous. One where you got to play really well. It's going to be a tough one. I mean, we know what that New Mexico State offense has done to Hugh Freeze in each of the last 2 years. That was against last year, against Auburn, and against Liberty the year before. I mean, New Mexico State and Tim Beck and company have had his number. So a big opportunity for growth this weekend. But I think that this past game, it never really presented itself as a moment where they had one of those gotta have it situations. So I still don't know if they've grown and progressed in that area yet, but you got to feel good about it, though. You got to feel good about going on the road and getting a win. You got to feel good about getting the run game going as well as you did. Your Achilles heel offensively has been the offensive line. That group looked better. The defense has been solid all season. I think you take it and run if you're Auburn right now.
Yeah, I think you have to. And I thought defensively, too, some of the guys that we've been talking about for a while kind of stood up in this game again. You had some of the players who we've been excited about and felt good about. Like Keldrick Falk was great in this game. And I don't know going in what I felt like had to happen for Auburn defensively to be able to be successful against this group, or if there was a position group that needed to do more or less, or that they were going to be able to get away with. I just kind of felt like it needed to be a solid team effort all the way around. And for the most part, I feel like you got that. Falk was I thought the linebackers were super aggressive. Mousy had a good game. And I thought Eugene Asante
he's been having a really good – he's probably played well 3 weeks in a row, I feel like Mousy has.
Yeah, he has. And Eugene Asante, I mean, he was much more downhill in this game, but he was just super aggressive and super physical. And that's I feel like DJ Durkin's kind of realized, okay, that's the strength of his game. Like, let's just cut him loose. Let's just let him go hunt. And he's been good doing that. Isaiah Rakes, a couple of good things inside. You're getting better reps from some of the interior guys, even though it might not be across the course of 4 quarters. They're flashing a little bit more. And then Kieron Crawford off the edge, I thought did some really nice things from a pass rush perspective. And then Jalen McLeod off the edge as well. They didn't get a lot of sacks. They weren't able to get Vandegrift to the ground a whole lot, but they did get those quarterbacks on the move quickly, collapsing the pocket, forcing them to leave. And I thought that was a big win. And I'll keep saying it. Quintrell Jamison Travis, 97 for Auburn. He just keeps being solid every week. Like, he gets in there and gives you solid reps every single week. He's not dynamic. He's not going to stack up the stat sheet, but 97 just gets in there and does good things each and every week. So felt pretty good about the front. Back end, lost a couple contested balls early on, but was able to take the ball away late, and you win the turnover battle, something that Auburn just has not done very often this year.
No, haven't at all. So I thought it was I think the defense has been the least of my concerns. Is there an area of the defense where I'd like to see them play a little better? You've pointed it out. I mean, I think they could be a little better tackling at the second and third level. I think the last line of defense could do a better job of getting ball carriers to the ground. I think they could do a better job of consistently creating an edge as far as pass rush is concerned. I mean, are there areas? Yes, but across the board, the defense is the least of my concerns. I think that defensive group's going to keep them in every game they play. But I do think that the offense has put them in some really challenging situations at times. So to avoid the critical mistake, you did have the interception early. That was a good defensive play. And guess what? The way Kentucky defends, they're going to get hands on the ball from time to time. They're just going to do that. That's just the way they operate. So none of that surprised me, but it'll be real interesting to see where things go moving forward. But man alive, I don't know about you. I'm having a real hard time getting a feel for what Auburn's going to be down the stretch. I think they're dangerous, but I still don't trust them. You know what I mean?
It's hard to, because we can say this is what this team is, ground and pound, run the football, but they haven't consistently been able to do that. And now it feels like you at least shown you can be committed to it, and it can be something that you go out there and do for 4 quarters. But are you going to do that again the next week? And I think that's where people have some questions. So I'll say this, like you look at that Texas offense, they don't go downhill enough, in my opinion, but they were not comfortable running the football right at this Vanderbilt defense. They were not. It was a lot of quick throws to the perimeter. There's a lot of extensions of the run game. Some of that is what Texas just is, and that's fine, and that's what they're going to be. They have the speed and athleticism to do that. But Auburn's going to have to get some things going outside or down the field against this group if they're going to consistently move the football. And then defensively, you've got to be sound. You have to be sound. And Texas won with their front four. The Texas front four caused a lot of problems. I think you'll see more 3-down from DJ this week. They want to try to force and give themselves some advantages on how they play the edges with Pavia in the read game a little bit. I know that's what Kwiatkowski wanted to do with that Texas defense, but the Texas defensive line, they were stout inside and they were problematic off the edge. And that's what Auburn's going to have to be if they're going to find a way to win this game. It's a very different Vanderbilt team. They are much more physical on both sides of the ball inside, and a team that can be really dangerous offensively. If you can all you got to do is get them into obvious pass downs. I mean, they're not a drop back football team. A lot of folks saw the score of that game, Greg, and sat back and thought, man, Vanderbilt almost did it again. Man, they had Texas where they wanted. They really didn't. I never felt like Vanderbilt was going to win that football game when I was calling it. I just didn't, because Texas got them in a situation where they had to drop back and throw the football, and Diego Pavia can't do that. That's not who he is. He's got to be comfortable moving around, manipulating things, having read and option plays at his disposal. He didn't have those. Therefore, it was an issue. So if Auburn can get those things done and get in those situations, then they got a good chance to go ahead and get 2 in a row this week.
Well, I think the thing about Vanderbilt is they're never going to be able to beat top-level teams if they turn the ball over.
No,
Simple
there's
as
no
that.
doubt, yeah.
I mean, they're simple as that. They turn the ball over 3 times, ain't happening. I mean, Diego Pavia in full backpedal trying to airmail a corner route.
Bad decision.
It's like you get some good Diego, but you get some bad Diego every once in a while as well. So I think that if he plays like he did against Bama, you're done. If he plays like he did against Texas, you're in a great position to get a win at home.
Absolutely. All right, we'll continue talking some college football from over the weekend. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. Talk Auburn's win against Kentucky. You want to talk that Missouri win as well, or the Alabama win against Missouri, you can do that. Text in 205-834-9450. An easy way to get in there. And we'll move on, talk a little bit more about Alabama's win against Missouri when we come back. But if you're looking to move in and out or a new home, Greg, who should you call?
They'll be our friends at Crocker Moving Service. They're a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys, and you can trust them in your home. Whether they need your whole home packed up and moved, your company headquarters moved across the country, or you just want them to rearrange your living room, these guys got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you've purchased and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website is crockermovingservices.com. That's crockermovingservices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move.
All right, get to that break. When we come back, more on Alabama's win against Missouri next, right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Jocks 94.5, appreciate you tuning in. 8:19, Monday, October 28th, Jocks 94.5. Before we move on and get too far away from Auburn's win against Kentucky, Hugh Freeze was asked if anything changed on the sideline when Auburn went down 10-0 early in that matchup in Lexington.
No, it really didn't. Our team just keeps fighting. I just think we're so young, and I don't know, the belief that you're going to find a way to win instead of find a way to lose is something that you have to experience. And hopefully now that we've experienced finding a way to win, and that will carry over and we'll grow from it.
So wants to try to grow from finding ways to win. And we mentioned it, Greg. This is we said this for weeks now. If Auburn can get one, they got a good chance to rack up a few more. Just because you got to get the one out of the way. You've got to find a way to just get that feeling, get the understanding, and then that's going to bring that desire back to go out and put the work in to play more clean football, responsibility in during the games to do things the right way. And now they've got that. You just got to find a way to capitalize on it.
Yeah, and I think that there's reason to feel good about it. I think something you can build on. I will say this: how much more has your anxiety, I guess you could say, eased as it relates to Auburn now that the offensive line looks halfway decent?
It's calmed down a little bit. I don't think there's any doubt. I feel a little bit better.
I'm not putting them in the Joe Moore, but
No,
come on. I mean, like
that.
The left tackle has been such a problem for so long that it's nice to know now that that's no longer going to be a significant concern.
Correct. I don't feel like you have any liabilities on the offensive line right now. And so from that standpoint, how you asked it, yes, my mind is much more at ease thinking that they may be able to do some different things moving forward as far as how they're going to construct the offense, some adjustments they may be able to make. Just the variety of what they're going to be able to call, I think, is going to be greater because when you get in 3rd and 8, I can imagine before you're sitting there thinking, well, we can't run a 5-step drop here because we're going to get beat. Our quarterback's going to have to run for his life, or quarterback's dropping back knowing he's going to take a hit. And like I said, Dylan Wade's got some work to do on his pass set. He was getting his feet together. It wasn't super clean, but he still just has an understanding of the position that is going to give him a fighting chance. And you kind of didn't have that before. So, yeah, I feel a lot better about it. And, I like I said earlier, I love the way that they varied the run scheme a little bit. They changed up some of the blocking assignments in the zone scheme, and then you go to gap scheme a little bit. You run kind of some counter. You run a little bit of power. You get out on the edge, on the perimeter, and you got a back that can hit it and can do some different things with it. So I feel much better about that possibility. And the defense continues to do some good things. So I hate to say that it's a group that you can just lean on, but there are portions of that defense at times I think you can lean on because they've let them down late in a couple games. But, yeah, you got to feel better about it because the offensive line is not something you go into a game now saying, yeah, that they're not going to be able to get it done. It's just not going to happen. Now you feel pretty good about, all right, they can keep you competitive.
That's it. I mean, they're not going to beat you up. They're not going to wear you out. You got to feel good about where they're at. But at the same time, I don't know about you. I think that there's a lot left on the table for them. You still have an opportunity. Obviously, we know that they're not a factor in the SEC championship race, but there might not be a more important team in the SEC as far as shaking things up. There's going to be a lot of people rooting for Auburn when they welcome Texas A&M to town in a few weeks. Assuming A&M gets a win this week at South Carolina, of course, that's a big assumption. They're just a narrow favorite. I think it's like a 3.5-point favorite. Assuming they get a win this week against South Carolina, you're looking at a situation where, hey, man, buckle up because they'll have a non-con game the following week, and then you're at Auburn before Texas comes to town. And I'm telling you, that's not a place I want to go when my team might be looking ahead ever so slightly. So Auburn not really a factor for much more than playing the spoiler right now because we know they can derail A&M season. They can derail Bama season here in a hurry.
No, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I want to spend a little bit more time on the Texas A&M win against LSU over the weekend. We can do that a little bit later this hour. Tweeting at Mac and Cube, you want to be a part of the show. But Hugh Freeze was asked just kind of about some of the attitude changes in the second half and maybe what was different about the demeanor of his football team in the second half as opposed to the first half.
No attitude changes. I don't think our play was sloppy in the third quarter. I thought we came out and went and scored. That's not real sloppy. Before half, the ball should have gone out of the back of the end zone or thrown up for a fade ball. Just can't take a sack there. But outside of that play, I thought the third and fourth quarter we were really solid.
Also, Coach Freeze just on his sickness and not being able to travel with the team initially.
The only thing that really was different was Friday. You know, I wasn't in the team meetings at the hotel Friday night, and I told our football administrator that we might need to just do that every Saturday, just whatever works. But that's the only thing that was different. I got here today for all our meetings, and so the Friday was, it would have been miserable for everybody if I would have tried to travel yesterday with them. So, but nothing was really different other than I missed the Friday night meetings.
I think Tuberville did it once, Greg. It was kind of, I know after 9/11, they flew into Baton Rouge day of the game, and then there was a time that he said he wanted to do it again. I can't remember what the reason was, just after I was gone, but they flew in day of game just to kind of compress things because he didn't want them sitting around. But either way, Hugh Freeze was able to figure it out, not going to be an issue moving forward. And we'll see if the team can build. The other part that we come out of this game with, having massive questions on, is Kentucky. And Mark Stoops saying same things after the game that he said about other losses.
I really don't have much to say. You know, just hit the repeat button. I think you all get tired about hearing the same thing, but it's more of the same. Need to finish drives, need to get in the end zone, need to play better in each phase of the game. Just got beat. Bottom line, we got beat. Didn't play good enough in any phase to win, and that's discouraging. But, you know, we have to respond. Again, I told the players all week, I mean, just like Auburn, I mean, they've been in a tough situation, and they responded and came in here and played extremely tough, and didn't surprise me that they were going to play hard. And we just have to match that, and we have to look at, you know, we just got to get back to playing as good as we can. Got to try to get some guys healthy, get better, and you know, I'll look at all options to, you know, put our team in a better position to play better next week.
All right, so that's Mark Stoops, and honestly, Greg, I've got them at Tennessee this weekend. Tennessee's had a week off. It's a high-powered offense that, even though Nico hasn't been super consistent this year, they can put 21, 28 on no problem. And the Kentucky offense, it just continues to search for itself, search for some kind of an identity, just can't seem to find it.
They are really struggling on offense. I think part of it, though, is that their offensive line's not very good. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, if you have a decent offensive line, you got a chance. But they are inconsistent in the run game. They're inconsistent in pass pro. They don't get anything out of the tight ends. The receivers are super inconsistent, and their quarterback has limited skill set. He's athletic and he's a tough guy. He's a great team guy, but they just don't have any home run hitters. I mean, they just kind of plod along. They're more like Iowa than they are like a traditional SEC team. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, a little bit frustrating.
I don't think there's any doubt. More like Iowa.
Tell me they're not.
Sorry, you got me on that one though. It's just I think they try more things than Iowa tries. They're
I don't
not good
disagree
at
to
it.
that.
So yeah, I don't. They can't. Coach Stoops, just on as we discuss it, and we don't know. He asked what happened to the offense.
There's no excuse. I mean, we got beat. You know, they covered us up. They played very aggressive. Give credit to them. Hugh came in here. They played very good offensively. Moved the ball as good against us as, you know, anybody I can remember in a while anyway. They've moved it very well. And defensively, DJ Durkin, he's a Youngstown guy, and I've known DJ for a long time. He's done a really good job, and they were very aggressive and in our face and pressuring us, and we didn't respond very well. I think, you know, actually early on, Dane made a couple really tough catches, and, you know, we did get the 10-point lead, but after that, they kind of, you know, stymied us.
So, and Kentucky actually did make a couple contested catches early, which they had not done. And unfortunately for Auburn, they had not been great at, but Auburn DBs sort of reversed that as the game went on and began to make some of those plays on contested catches and negated those. So it was a weird one. You and I talked about it last week. Didn't really know exactly what to expect about this one, how it would go. But Auburn does get the win, and now You look at potentially being able to build on that moving forward. You could have some real momentum heading into a Vanderbilt team that you're going to have some advantages against. They're going to make life hard. They're going to make you work your way down the field. Not going to give up a ton of explosives. And then offensively, going to try to maintain possession, going to try to work the clock, get third down, convert third downs. Like you said, Vanderbilt can't beat you turning the ball over and not converting on third downs. That's what they didn't do against Texas. Texas had multiple flags on third down to keep Vanderbilt in that game. So if you're looking for the formula, we can already begin to lay it out of what's going to happen for Auburn if they're going to win that game this weekend. Third straight loss for Kentucky, held to 10 or fewer points for the second time this season. That's tied for the most of any SEC team with anyone? 2 other SEC teams that have been held to 10 or fewer points 2 times this year?
I'm going to say Florida.
No.
Mississippi State.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma definitely won.
Oklahoma.
One of them was just shut out.
Missouri.
Missouri
Missouri would be the other.
They have 10. I thought they had 13 against A&M.
Missouri against A&M. I don't have that in front of me right now.
I got
Sorry.
you. Hang on. Stand by. Oh, yeah, they had 10. They had 10 in that game, not 13. So, point proven, ESPN Sports and Information correct again. They get us every time.
7 straight SEC home losses for Kentucky. Not good.
It's not ideal.
It's not what you want. So we'll see if the Cats can right the ship, and I guess it's good that they're not at the Krog this weekend playing Tennessee. Maybe can find a way to get that one instead. We will flip the script and talk a little bit more about what we liked from Alabama's win against Missouri when we come back. First, tell our listeners about Bromberg's, Greg.
Well, Bromberg's has been serving this community for nearly 200 years. It's so great to know that you can walk in to their store at Mountain Brook Village at the Summit, know that you're going to have the same great customer service that maybe your parents have had, or maybe even your grandparents, your great-grandparents, or great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents have had when they've been shopping at Bromberg's. That's that luxury shopping experience that you'll only find at Bromberg's. They've had their doors open since 1836, but they had the best in fine jewelry, watches, giftware, the best in customer service. I'm telling you, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, the service that you'll receive when you walk in the store and work with one of your favorite salespeople. I have multiple that I've worked with, and they're all terrific, so you can't go wrong at Bromberg's. So go see them at one of their 2 locations in Mountain Brook Village and the Summit, or you can always shop online at brombergs.com.
All right, so think about this during the break. We'll discuss Alabama and Missouri when we come back, but also, how many more wins does Auburn get this year based on what you saw this weekend? Not just from them, but from the other teams on their schedule. We'll discuss it next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 800-239-9569. You want to talk Alabama's win against Missouri over the weekend? We'll have Tyler Watts at 9 o'clock to continue doing that. But this is a team that came in, Greg, still maybe looking to find out exactly who they are offensively, what they can be. As I stated earlier in the show, I thought it was the most physical game Alabama has played this year on offense. I thought Booker was fantastic. I thought Brailsford played well. Proctor, a couple struggles early, specifically in pass pro, but he got better as the game went on. What Dupree and Robbie Utes added, I thought was exceptional. And you got Justice Haynes going downhill a little bit. I mean, he's bonking off safeties and, throwing himself off guys and defenders trying to tackle him, breaking tackles everywhere. I mean, I thought this was one of the first times that we've seen Alabama sort of go downhill and say, all right, let's see what you can do about it. Now, you're in a comfortable spot when you decided to do that. So does that mean that they're just going to open games that way? Probably not. But I felt like, because somebody tweeted us a little bit earlier, I probably won't be able to find it right now, and said something about Milroe and his downfield throws. There were a couple drops that Milroe had early that I didn't think were on him at all. I didn't think he played bad. He slipped on one throw. I thought he had 2 drops early in the game. I didn't think it was a poor performance by Jalen Milroe down the field at all. What were your thoughts?
I respectfully disagree. I did not think it was great. Did have the slip on the one, same page, throwing it out to his right. Did slip there. And somehow I was able to get enough on it to get it out there. Just goes to show you, that's pretty dang strong to have really all arm and to throw from the left hash all the way to the outside, 10, 12 yards downfield. Rolling to his left, missed one, way off the mark to the outside, missed a deep ball. The accuracy is just not very good right now. I don't really know what else to tell you. It's really not, it's not great from an accuracy standpoint. Good news is he has an opportunity to clean things up. You always look at off-target percentage. That's, if you're single digit, you feel good about it, right? If single digit, that's solid. If you're around 5%, it's amazing. Last year, Carson Beck was number 1 in college football as far as off-target percentage. It was 6%. So off-target percentage against Wisconsin for Jalen, 6%. Against Georgia, 3%. Against Vandy, 4%. The last 3, he's been off target on 14% against South Carolina, 19% against Tennessee, and 19% against Missouri. Now, I'm not sitting there actively charting missed throws. There were a bunch of nice throws made in the game, too. Hit a couple seams that were nice. Thought he anticipated and hit a few in-breaking routes that were solid. Felt pretty good about that. Did miss a deep ball. And he's missed multiple deep balls dating back to the Vandy game where he's thrown the ball out of bounds. A couple of those. That's been a bit of an issue. On a deep ball, you got to just keep it in bounds. Give your guy a chance. So yeah, I would like to see things cleaned up a little bit. And good news is you have the bye week to really work on throwing and catching and maybe getting back to your fundamentals, cleaning up your feet, because his feet have not been great the last couple of weeks either.
No, we talked about that after last week's game where they kind of looked like they were all over the place. I don't know if that's kind of what led to hit the slip as well. But what can that be attributed to as far as when a quarterback's feet in the pocket begin to get away from them, just don't look clean, don't allow you to get set up the way that you need to, and then how do you repair that?
You got some happy feet going, and there's a lot of retreating in the pocket. I think you just got to kind of ground him a little bit. Hey, bud, what are you comfortable with? What do you want to throw? What do you like? Thought he was pretty decisive early, made some nice throws early in the game. But there were a few considerable misses, too, and a couple throws that probably should not have been tried. Outbreaker, over routes, maybe a little too much air under this, a little too much, maybe a little bit too firm on this. And it's not, we're nitpicking here, right? And we're nitpicking on a great player, but I do think there's some room for growth. And I think if he looks internally, and this is when you do it, right? The bye week, when you can really focus on your feet, just slowing his feet down a little bit. He has a tendency to get a little bit too fast, a little too rushed. Now, he's got great athleticism, and he's a very twitchy player. So that's all positive. But I would like to see just a little more methodical from time to time, just a little bit, not crazy, just a little more methodical, just slow him down just a little bit. Because I think when his feet get moving and his arms get moving, he tends to rush things, and maybe he's not all in unison to deliver the ball accurately. So I think it's actually quite fixable. It's just going to require a decent amount of concentration and self-reflection here over the next 4 or 5 days. And hey, this is the time to do it. And remember last year out of the bye week, I mean, he played his best football down the stretch in a 3-game season prior to the Auburn game. I mean, he played great in a 3-game season. The Auburn game was a little hit or miss, and then I thought he played really well against Georgia. So now is the time. And if history is any indicator, he's going to come out of this thing guns a-blazing against LSU in a week and a half.
Absolutely. I think when you look at where that offense is, I thought Jeremy Bernard looked good again. Didn't get a ton of opportunities, 5 for 82. We know what Ryan Williams capable of, 4 for 53. And you got the backs going downhill just a little bit more. Had to feel good about that. What do you want to see this offense? What do you want their identity to be the rest of the way through? When you think about who they're going to play, what they need to do to potentially make the playoff?
Well, I think the offense is I like where it's going right now. I know that a lot of people are going to look at it and feel like it's not high flying, or maybe it's a bit clunky. I like the commitment that we're getting now to the run game from this coaching staff. I like that they're trying to use and feature the backs. I thought Justice Haynes had his best game in an Alabama uniform running the football. Thought he made some really nice and decisive runs downhill. Thought he was sudden on a few different cases as well. So I want to see more in the run game. I don't want the run game to exclusively be, Jalen on a read here, Jalen on a sweep here. I want the run game to be committed to in a more traditional sense, because I think this offensive line is capable of handling that. This offensive line, pound for pound, could be your best player, especially from center to left tackle. That might be your best attribute on the team. Some might say Ryan Williams, sure, but he's an undersized rookie. You know what I mean? That's a tough, for him to go the distance for 15, 16 games is going to be hard. That offensive line needs to be the star. And from center to left tackle, you're starting to get that. So I like where they're heading offensively. I don't care about the high-flying, big play potential. I like a little more meat and potatoes from time to time, and that's going to take the pressure off the defense, which we know is thin. It's going to shrink the game a little bit more, which we know is beneficial. And it's still, if they stay committed to the run game, it's going to continue to open things up downfield, which has been something that they've leaned on for a long, long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So Alabama gets that win, gets to 6-2 on the season. Missouri now a concerning 6-2, as we just said earlier, have gone for 10 or fewer points twice this season. Drew Pine, 6 of 12, 42 yards, 3 picks. He came in off the bench. Alabama outgains Missouri 486 to 239. Keep in mind, Alabama was outgained in their previous 3 games. So that in and of itself, a good sign for more reasons than one. 20th straight home win in SEC play. That's the second longest streak in Southeastern Conference history. And Kalen DeBoer's largest margin of victory over a top 25 opponent. First shutout loss since 2019 at Georgia for Mizzou. 72 passing yards, their fewest in a game since 2021 at Arkansas. So 3 yards per pass attempt. Not great for the Mizzou Tigers. Not what you want. All right, we'll continue talking that one and a couple others from around the Southeastern Conference next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 8:49 Monday, October 28th. Jocks 94.5. Tyler Watts joining us in 10 minutes. Talk a little bit more Alabama, Missouri, but I want to go around the rest of the SEC, GMAC. I was on Texas, Mississippi State. Texas, Mississippi State. I was on that game a little bit earlier in the season. I was on Texas Vandy, 27-24, and there are people who are just going to look at the box score of this game and say, oh, Vandy was in it, and Vandy had a chance to, kick the onside and maybe be in that game, stay in that game. I'm just going to tell you, I never felt like Vanderbilt had a chance to win this game. And they got what they needed early. They got the turnover early. They tip a ball from Quinn Ewers. They intercept it. They get it into the end zone. Diego Pavia goes off tackle on scramble drill, dives into the end zone. And you're thinking, all right, that's exactly the way they needed to go. And then next thing you know, Quinn Ewers goes on to complete 17 straight passes. He's thrown a touchdown pass in 19 straight games. And it's a lot of dink and dunk, quick perimeter throws that Vanderbilt just wasn't athletic enough to be able to negate. Now, I will give Vanderbilt credit. They were pretty good against the downhill run game for about 2.5 quarters of this. And then Texas began to lean a little bit and began to get some of those going. But once Texas added a couple of scores and it became borderline panic time for the Vanderbilt offense, they couldn't operate that way. And it was pretty apparent that Diego Pavia, how many sprint outs can you call in 2-minute drill? It's like you can't operate that way. And so I thought he began to press, gets knocked out of the game at one point, has to go to the tent, comes back out with a knee brace on, and Cedric Alexander never really got going. They couldn't get the downhill run game going to complement some of the read plays and option plays for him to be able to run. And even though the score indicated it being a little bit different, I just never thought Vandy was truly in this game.
No, and they need it to go a certain way for them to pull off wins against teams that are vastly superior in talent. Texas is one of those teams. Vandy's a good football team. They're a rock-solid football team. They're not an easy out. They're a team that I wouldn't want to mess with, but they also are not a team that can survive critical mistakes and expect to win games like this. To turn it over the way they turned it over, it's just not going to be sustainable. They're a team that really kind of needs to play with the lead. They need a team to be pressing. When a team is pressing against Vandy, that's when they can get you because of all the misdirection, eye violation stuff that they can do offensively. And the fact that they have quarterback run, you're always keen on that. Like, they're a team that really needs to kind of have control, and they never really had it outside of the opening turnover and touchdown. So I think Vandy's good, solid, but they're just not good enough to beat Texas when they don't play mistake-free football.
Absolutely. I will say Texas wide receivers, they got juice, man. Like, first off, Gunnar Helm, super valuable as a tight end. He helps them in line. He can help you with quick throws, middle of the field. He does a lot. DeAndre Moore's coming back now. He's getting healthy. Quindravius Wisner, we thought running back was going to be a problem for Texas this year. He is super dynamic, especially in the open field. He looked great, and if it's quick ball distribution, Quinn Ewers can do it just about as good as anybody. Ryan Wingo is going to be big time. Like, they have, they've and keep in mind Isaiah Bond didn't play in this game, so he was out for this one. And then, like I said before, the middle of the Texas defense, I think, is a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. And that includes Anthony Hill Jr. at inside linebacker. Like, they are stout up the middle. So see if that's kind of the bounce back win Texas needs to continue to try and propel them into the SEC championship game. One that looks like Texas A&M now has a great shot to be there. 38-23, they get the win over LSU. They get to 7-1, 5-0 in the SEC. Not because of Connor Wigman. He goes 6 of 18, 64 yards, and gets benched. Marcel Reed comes in. He only throws 2 passes, Greg. So folks are saying, well, this offense is now going to go with Marcel Reed. We know it's going to be better with him. He made some great plays, did some nice jobs working the mesh, had a couple good runs, but he only throws 2 passes. Is that Colin Klein's offense moving forward? Is Marcel Reed the guy for A&M?
No, I don't. I'm not willing to go that far yet. Now, I don't trust Wigman to save my life. But I do know this. I know that Marcel Reed at this point, while he did deliver maybe the throw of the game, I'm not sure I'm comfortable enough at this point saying that, oh, well, this offense absolutely runs through his legs. I think he's really good, and it's fair if he wants to if they give him the first crack at it against South Carolina, then that's awesome. But in the event in which South Carolina gets off to a hot start and they need to throw their way back in the game, I don't love the circumstances surrounding Reed necessarily being that guy. Now, I think LSU being an aggressive group, it was perfect storm situation. Hey, they're teeing off. They are getting home, and we need a mobile option to kind of change up the launch point. So this one made a lot of sense to make the move at the time just because of the varying skill sets of Reed and Wigman. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's permanent in my eyes. I don't know how you see it.
No, I mean, I don't know how the inconsistencies of Connor Wigman can be something that you can build on. You take the inconsistencies with Marcel Reed because he adds the run dynamic and he forces you to defend them differently. It was a little eye-opening that Blake Baker and LSU could not make proper adjustments. I mean, they're still crashing the mesh like completely out of control later in the game down near the goal line, and I mean, the quarterback can keep the ball. They know that, right? And I mean, it was wild to see some of the lack of adjustments there. But I think he's the perfect kind of quarterback to give you some longer developing plays and some plays with options to use their aggressiveness against them, and they did. So I think it kind of has to be Marcel Reed. I could understand if you wanted to play both to a certain extent, but I just don't know. I don't know how you live with Connor Wigman moving forward because he's too inconsistent and he's not going to give you exactly what you need. Game Day Men's Health will give you what you need, though. If you're feeling on edge, if you're lacking sleep, if you lack energy, go check out Game Day Men's Health today. Set up a free consultation at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. They have weight loss programs, and they're going to get you set up with a free testosterone and free PSA test when you go sign up at GameDayMen'sHealth.com for that free consultation. They can help you with a lot of different things, cool environment, locker room feel, no pressure, not going to try to push you into anything that you don't need. And all the services that they do offer, you can save 10% on any of those by mentioning Cube when you walk in the door at Game Day Men's Health. Testosterone replacement therapy can help you. It can help many, and they can do it for you at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Schedule that free consultation today and tell them you heard about them right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Tyler Watts talks Bama, Missouri next on Jocks 94.5. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Every Monday, we bring in Tyler Watts to give us his thoughts on the Alabama games. And he does a broadcast via radio alongside Chris Stewart, and Bama gets that win against Missouri. We're going to talk to him about it here in just a moment. But first, G-Mac, tell our listeners about the Pants Store.
Well, Pants Store is your game day headquarters for all the best brands. As things are starting to cool off, you need to go get some layers. It's layer season. Go to the Pants Store and check out some of the polos, quarter zips, hoodies, jackets, you name it. They have all that stuff. They also have hats. You get the best brands like Cutter and Buck, Antigua, Gentile. Nobody does game day apparel quite like the Pants Store. They also have shoes. They have dresses for the ladies. They have a romper for the ladies. The Pants Store has you covered. They also do the clear purses so that you can get through security super smooth without worrying whatsoever. Zip on down to the Pants Store for all your game day needs.
All right, Tyler Watts, member of the Alabama Radio Network, who calls games and was on call for this Missouri game. Tyler, there are parts of this that I really like. I felt like it was Alabama's most physical game offensively. Staying with the offense, what did you come away from feeling best about for the Crimson Tide's win?
Well, knowing you, buddy, you had to have loved the tone that Tyler Booker set early in that ball game. I mean, he was driving people 5-10 yards out of bounds, downfield, ripped a couple guys' helmets off. I mean, it was a completely different attitude along that front, and I love the way that they came out. Look, I thought the fans were great. It was something that we were a little bit concerned with, the fact that it was so stinking hot. And coming off of a loss to Tennessee, what was the atmosphere going to be like? But the place was packed out, and the fans really did their part as well. But, you know, getting the stop by the defense on 3 and out, and schematically, Missouri really didn't have anything that they could do early on in that game. I mean, I thought it was the best performance by the defense, especially early on. They were matching up with the patterns. There was nowhere to go with the football. They looked fast. It was the exact kind of response that you were hoping you would receive. And man, I thought on both sides, they really came out ready to play.
How much of the frustration is coming from the keyboard warriors as opposed to like those? I feel like with a level head are not panicking and they understand, hey, this team's a work in progress. They still playing to play for. If they beat LSU, like everything's in good shape. Like most of the people I talk to are pretty glass half full, but it feels like the narrative, and maybe just Finebaum colors are getting too much of a platform nowadays. It feels like the narrative is much more negative than the reality. So what is your read on the situation, Tyler?
Well, you know, everything's always a work in progress, and we have short memories of past seasons of knowing how guys evolve over the course of the season. Play calling does, you know, creating your own identity on both sides and just learning how to compete every single week. That's always a work in progress, and there's going to be performances that are better than others. It's unfortunate that we played one of our worst games versus Tennessee on the offensive side, but you responded, and I think that's the critical thing is how do you come back to work and prepare yourself for the next week. Everything is still out in front, but it doesn't mean that it's the best product that we can put on the field yet, but that's kind of exciting also from the standpoint of knowing that you can improve and get better, and you know, where's the season going to take you.
Tyler Watts, member of the Alabama radio broadcast team, joining us now on the Buyers Right hotline. Jalen Milroe's performance, did you see issues with it? Are there problems that are kind of lingering, hanging around? How do you assess him kind of heading into the last month of the season?
Well, let's start off to begin this game. I thought that the game plan was good as far as let's take the decision making out of it. Let's don't try to push the ball down the field early on. Let's try to spread Missouri's defense out, sideline to sideline. Let's hit them on the edges. Let's get rid of the football quick, make it a quick passing game, get some completions under our belt. And then as we can kind of size up this defensive front, then we'll start taking some shots. I thought that he played really good at times. He had a couple of deep balls that sailed out of bounds, but he also threw a couple that were catchable. Kobe Prentice kind of checked up on one that could have been a huge play. That wasn't Jalen's fault. I thought that there were some very good throws that he made. Yeah, he's still a little inconsistent. He's not going to complete 100%. And I think right now, I think all any of us want is you don't have to make the plays that aren't there. Let's just make the ones that are wide open and there. Let's complete those ones, and then we'll feel a little bit better. But I heard Greg talk about this. I think it was last week or the week before. That he's best when he kind of attacks the line of scrimmage, even in the passing game. And sometimes he does get a little flat-footed and doesn't move around the pocket to help his offensive line out, especially in obvious passing situations. So he still has room to improve. But once again, we kind of saw the same thing last year, and he stepped it up towards the end of the season. So he definitely has to play better for them to make a run. But I think you have all the pieces there, and now that you can kind of see the finish line and understand exactly what you need to do to be successful, hopefully we'll get that out of him and everybody else.
What do you make of the defense's progress the last couple of weeks? I've been kind of seeing the writing on the wall, like, all right, it's coming. It's coming. Like, you kind of sense it a little bit. I know people don't feel that way, but against South Carolina, it's like, all right, there's a lot to like here. I think there's really been 6 bad quarters of defense played this season. Second half against Georgia and the 4 quarters against Vanderbilt. Other than that, I feel like the defense played pretty well, and I thought Saturday was its shining moment. So how buildable is that performance?
Man, we were physical up front, stopping the run. I loved how the linebackers feel. It was like our gap integrity was a lot better than what we've seen in weeks past. And I thought the secondary, I thought it was their best performance by far. As far as recognizing where the routes were going, they were matching up, locking on. And Cook had nowhere. Brady Cook had nowhere to go with the football early on, and it was like that all game long. I mean, they were matching up. Everyone's eyes were where they were supposed to be, back on the receivers, not just looking in the backfield. It was the first time all season you haven't seen busted coverages of wide open people downfield, and you have one of the better wide receivers in the country in Burden, and he was a non-factor all day long. And so I thought by far this was the most aggressive. And, that kind of success really breeds confidence in a defensive unit. They can play faster, understanding what they're doing. If they're in the right position, their eyes are in the right place. And then all of a sudden you're becoming an athlete and you can really play good football on that side. And it was complimentary all day long. They got the turnovers, but unlike the week before, the offense was able to turn those into points. And man, that's a tone setter right there.
Tyler, when you look at just kind of what you would focus in on during the bye week, what would be the first priority for you?
I still want to see more Kendrick Law. We have seen him early the last 2 weeks on a couple of jet sweep motions, and they've gone for good gains. And then we just get away from it. And I think that puts a tremendous amount of strain on a defensive unit. And I'd like to see us come back to that a couple of more times. So just those concepts. And LSU kind of got hurt with that last week against A&M. So I don't think you want to run Milroe as much as maybe you were early in the season. I think he needs to be a complementary part that's just kind of keeping defenses off balance, and they're scared of what he potentially or when he's going to come out. But I think that could be a 3-headed monster if you incorporate Kendrick Law in the running game a little more than what you have, and then continue to lean on the running game. This is the first time we've really seen us just line it up and say, we're going after you. We're going to run it between the tackles. We're going to inside out you. We're going to be physical. We're going to pick up 3-4 yards. And even if it doesn't work, we're not going to abandon it. We're going to stay with it, because I think, honestly, that takes pressure off of Jalen Milroe. You got to stay ahead of the chains, but it takes pressure off of him of just sitting back on 3rd and long situations and allowing those defensive linemen just to tee off against him. So I'd love to see a little bit more of those concepts, because I think that it really could hurt defenses. And then on the defensive side, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep developing these younger guys. It was an impressive 4th down stop inside the 1-yard line late in that game. Now, granted, the first-team guys did come back on, but the second-team guys that were getting some playing time stopped them on 2nd and 3rd down to set up that 4th down stop. And that was huge for that defense to get the shutout. You can really see the excitement on the sideline and with the coaches of being able to shut out Missouri.
Tyler, when I agree with you on Kendrick Law, I feel like he just makes the offense different when he's in. He just adds a different dimension of things. But back to the defense, does it show growth for you that the linebacker play, it doesn't feel like there's as much just looking east and west. There's not as much thinking. It feels like it's a lot more reacting than it was earlier in the season.
They filled the holes better than they have all season long. Just kicked a trash can. I got so excited. They filled the holes and took the fight to that offense more than they have in the past. You're right. They weren't getting linemen up on them. They were filling the gaps where they were supposed to be. So the run fits were outstanding, and they got to keep building on that. Kind of want to shift gears on you here. One dude that we've really been watching the last couple of weeks is Jalen Mbakwe. Man, he has really stepped up and becoming kind of that alpha dog there in the secondary. He made a mistake. He actually made 2 mistakes on special teams with catch interference. But as far as the defensive side, man, he is really doing an outstanding job. He's an athlete back there. He has the confidence. And that's something exciting also is these young guys in the secondary are really starting to pick up and understand what their role is and what they're supposed to be doing. And it's fun to watch that development.
Finally,
Greg,
Tyler, one more, Cole. Finally, when you look at just what you can anticipate from the offensive line and the run game and stuff like that, do you think there's a few more layers that they can get to when it comes to this run game, or do you think what you see is kind of what you get at this point?
I don't know, because we've kind of shown a bunch of different looks all season long. We really don't have like, this is our bread and butter, this is what we go with. It seems to kind of be all over the place. I got to think, though, that offensive line is going to love to turn on the field and look at the coaches and go, y'all, this is who we can be if we will stay committed to it. Because when that offensive line starts taking over a game and wearing down a defense, man, it just makes everything else so much easier with the play action, the different looks that you get. You still have the deep threats. Now all of a sudden you're getting more one-on-one matchups that are preferable for you. So, I still think that this is a team that maybe hadn't run the ball as effectively as they wanted to consistently every single week, but it's one that they can lean on if they'll just stay committed to it.
Tyler, great stuff, man. Appreciate the time. Always good catching up with you. We'll do it again next week.
Thanks, fellas.
Tyler Watts, member of the Alabama radio broadcast team, joining us on the Buyers Right hotline. Just talking about physicality that this team brings to the table and maybe what was a little bit different in this game that has been in some of the others. I know a lot of folks, GMAC, want to see that continue, want to see that become a trend for Alabama to be a team that leans on that downhill rushing attack week in, week out.
That's where they're going. I'm convinced of it. Look at the A&M game against LSU. What did A&M do in the second half of that football game? Outside of, forced turnovers and all stuff, they just leaned on them. I mean, they ran right at them. And they challenged the depth of that defensive line. And that's what I think, that's where Bama is going to need to go. And the good news is LSU just showed the ability to struggle against a quarterback that can add something in the run game. And we know Jalen can add something in the run game. So going into this matchup this upcoming weekend, this is big time, man. I know you got some time now. We got 2 weeks to figure it out, but it's big time. Bama's rushing attack against LSU's front seven, which I think is a strength and an advantage potentially in favor of Alabama. I think the pass rush LSU's advantage LSU, but I think just running the ball is an advantage in Alabama's favor. And I think Bama's secondary against LSU's passing attack is advantage LSU. So going to be a lot to grow on here in the next couple of weeks. But, man, you got to like where you're standing right now after having some question marks throughout the intermediate part of the season.
No, I don't think there's any doubt. And I want to spend a little more time on the Texas A&M LSU game. We'll do that when we come back. But first, you have to wait to hear that conversation. One thing you never have to wait for, Greg, is your dental care.
That's because Family Care Dental has you taken care of. They're the urgent care office where they can get you in the same day. They can also see you on Fridays and Saturdays because we know at this point, man, it's hard to schedule dental appointments around family, kids. It's hard to find a place that can work with your schedule. That's why Family Care Dental is there for you. They're open on Fridays and Saturdays. They get you in for the urgent. They also can get you in for the routine. And they have locations all throughout the community. Hoover, Fultondale, Alabaster, and Homewood, but they are now open in Trustful as well. So it's Family Care Dental, 874-9605. Go see them in their new location in Trustful by calling them today at Family Care Dental, 874-9605.
More on Texas A&M's win against LSU. What do we learn? What do we now know about the Aggies and maybe know about the Tigers next on Mac and Cube in the morning?
Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 9:19 a.m. here in Birmingham, Alabama. And short drive up to Coleman, you'll go get yourself a brand new GMC. You won't find any better deals than the ones you'll find at Bill Smith Buick GMC. There's a reason why they are the GMC Dealer of the Year, the 7-time national champion. They're the largest GMC dealership in Alabama, which means they can offer the largest discounts. Go and take the short drive up to Coleman. It's up I-65, exit 310, Highway 31. You can go see Andy Cole and Jonathan Yeager and grab yourself a GMC Sierra 2500. the Denali Ultimate trim level, which is the nicest vehicle for a heavy-duty payload truck that you'll find in the world. This thing is beautiful. $96,535 is the list price. Most places, they can't discount it. No chance. They got to make their margins. Bill Smith sells so many, they're not worried about it. They'll give it to you for close to cost by getting you out the door for $87,535, plus to make it even sweeter, 3.9% for 48 months on the financing as well. So take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. That's why 75% of their business is repeat customers, because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith. Take the short drive up to Coleman. You can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
All right, let's talk a little bit more. Texas A&M 38, LSU 23. Felt like LSU going to be in control of this game through the first half. A&M 5-0 in conference play for the first time since joining the SEC. First time in any conference since '98. 7 wins matches their total from a year ago. And they've now won 7 straight games, second longest win streak in a season since 2000. It was a dominant performance up front, Greg, and it looked like that might not be the case early, but then LSU kind of completely gets away from any sort of balance and any sort of a rushing attack. It goes all to Nussmeier. The sprint outs, the rollouts, just kind of not enough to offset what A&M was able to do up front, and it was multiple players who were problematic for that Texas A&M defense. Nick Scorton, obviously fantastic. We know about 11, what he can do. You know what Shamar Turner's going to be able to do, but I mean, you got a couple of other guys like Alper Regis who are up front causing problems. I tell you who was like super impressive to me is Cassius Howell, 18. Like he's got some real twitch off the edge. Not necessarily a bunch of stats, but like he affected the pocket and forced things to move and just be different. But it's a group that has multiple guys individually and collectively that can be a problem. You pick off 3 passes, and Garrett Nussmeier kind of shows you what we've talked about for weeks. Like he will throw the ball to the other team. And it's just a matter of, are you going to be Arkansas and drop a couple of those? Or are you going to be A&M and grab them and then turn them into points like they were able to and then find a way to get a win?
Yeah, I mean, and he's bold. Now, he'll roll the dice. And that was the concern of the coaching staff coming into the season, is that while Garrett Nussmeier is crazy talented and a guy that just plays the game the right way and is tough as nails and isn't scared to put his players in position to be successful, he does have a little bit too much confidence at times in his own arm. And this was the first time that it really came to the forefront. A&M forced him into some bad decisions and able to get some hands-on passes. And next thing you know, they were able to score on 5 consecutive possessions to erase a 10-point deficit at halftime. So a really impressive performance from A&M for sure, because I think LSU is the real deal. I'm a big fan, big believer. I still think LSU is very good, but they need their quarterback to play elite level football for them to win. They just don't have any run game at all. And that's, I think, really surprising when you take into account what they have along the offensive line. So it's going to be interesting, man. I mean, you kind of look at just where some of these teams in the SEC are going. I mean, there is a scenario where you have 4 SEC teams that are sitting there with 1 loss at season's end, vying for the SEC championship game. Texas, they already have theirs. A&M plays Texas. So if A&M loses to Texas, they'll have theirs. LSU right now has just 1 loss in the conference. That's to A&M, but if they beat Bama and run the table down the stretch, they have 1 loss. And then the winner of Georgia-Tennessee would have 1 loss as well, assuming they run the table in their other games, which means 4 one-loss SEC teams potentially is insane at this point of the season. I don't think it's likely, obviously. That would require some upsets and some surprising finishes. But, man, there's a real solid chance at chaos here down the stretch as far as the SEC title race is concerned.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, they don't try to run the ball. I mean, they don't really give it a go. I felt like they had a couple of things going early in the run game, and then they just bail on it. They don't even have the effort. And Brian Kelly talked about that lack of balance yesterday after the game, or Saturday night, excuse me.
Well, it wasn't the RPOs as much as it was the quarterback run game. And, I mean, it's the million-dollar question, and I would say that we need to spend more time, and each and every week it's got to be part of it, because right now I would run the quarterback against us.
That had nothing to do with LSU running the football. It's my fault. That's LSU defending quarterback run, which they also couldn't do well, Greg.
Yeah, and quarterback run defense, like we kind of talked about a moment ago, like that's something that Bama does pretty well. So that would be really encouraging. If you're looking at it from a Bama perspective, you got to feel pretty good about where things might be going in that direction, assuming the run game can continue and Jalen's legs continue to be a factor as well. And hey, knowing it's a one-game season here in a couple weeks, you got to like your matchup right now. You really do.
It's going to be a massive game when Alabama plays LSU. Some people say elimination game. That'll decide who gets in, who gets out of the college football playoff. So one that I think is interesting for a couple of different reasons. We'll have plenty of time to preview that one, and don't really need to get into the breakdown now. I will tell you about your CBD store, though. If you're looking for products to help you get a better night's sleep, if you have arthritis, anxiety, you or your pet, your CBD store can help. They've helped multiple pets in my household get around a little bit better. They can help yours. It's the largest brick-and-mortar CBD retailer on planet Earth. Your CBD store, first company that focuses on USDA-certified organic oil supplements. They have the stamp seal on those products so they can meet and achieve a certain set of standards. Your CBD store, 3 locations, Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cage in Cleaver, Trustful just off 459, and now downtown in 5 Points. Your CBD store where good health hits home. Back with more Mac and Cube right after this. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Monday, October 28th, 9:30 a.m. right here on Jocks 94.5. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Alabama, Auburn wins. We have discussed those. This was interesting coming from Texas A&M head football coach Mike Elco after the game when A&M gets the 38-23 victory over LSU, just kind of setting the record straight on what his program is.
I think it's the way we talk to the young people. I think the things that we talk about, the messaging, how we bring really good people into the building. We talk about doing things together. We talk about culture, and everyone talks about it, but then we go out and we live it every day. And I think we back up our actions. We're very honest. We're very open. And this is a real program. It's not fake. It's not a politician running this program, talking fast and BSing everybody. This is a real program. And for all the recruits out there, this is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
There's a lot of people, Greg, going back and forth on, is this directed at Jimbo Fisher? Is this directed at Brian Kelly? You have any thoughts on what Elco was attempting to accomplish here?
It does feel like a slight shot to Jimbo Fisher, does it not?
Yeah, I never saw the Brian Kelly thing. A lot of people kind of thought that's what it was. I never thought that it was directed at him, no.
I mean, Brian Kelly, I'm not even familiar that there was some type of
I think there's a background in politics there, and they work together. So I don't. Some people thought that. I never really thought that that's what it was at all. I think it's directed at Jimbo.
I think it was directed at Jimbo. I mean, It might not have been not directed at anybody. I mean, does Brian Kelly talk fast?
Not necessarily. Not from what I've heard.
I know someone who does. So I don't like to necessarily make like something out of nothing, and maybe it was nothing. But I think for a long time, and look, I like Jimbo, but I do think that Jimbo has some politician in him for sure. So I think it was a direct shot at him. I mean, I'm not sure how you can possibly spin it any other way.
Do you think this is frustration on maybe just kind of beginning to bleed out from Elco on, having to repair a lot of the damage that was done, having to answer a lot of the questions about, how things had been handled previously?
I don't know. I feel like Elco stepped into about as good a situation as you could possibly step into, where the issues on the team were far more dysfunction than it was about personnel. Like, personnel is hard to fix, right? I mean, you're not going to just all of a sudden flip your roster and become an elite team from a talent standpoint overnight. Personnel takes time. They had personnel. They just had several other challenges in addition to personnel as far as structure and probably the way they practiced and the way and the style of offense that they ran and the way that the players were talked to and the accountability that was expected within the building and all this other stuff. Like I wasn't there. I wasn't in the building, but that's the assumption. So I think he stepped into an ideal situation to have immediate success, and the schedule is manageable too. I mean, let's be real. Yeah, you got Notre Dame early. That's a tough test, no doubt about it. But from that point forward, everyone that you have that's really, really challenging is at your place. And that, I think, is really beneficial. Even though Florida, I think, has had some good moments this year, but they caught them early and at the right time. So I don't know about you. Like, I think things have really set up nicely for A&M. That's not taking anything away from Elco, but I think he did walk into a pretty good situation.
I'm just wondering why he felt the need to sort of address this the way that he did now and sort of set the record straight on what kind of a program he feels like they have, who has maybe been saying these things, who he's been hearing this from. It felt a little odd because you've got the massive win in front of an awesome crowd that the environment just looks spectacular. Physically, I felt like you were able to go out and really be the more dominant team on both sides of the ball. I thought the offensive line, not taking anything away from what LSU did defensively. I mean, they had some guys that played really well up front, but A&M got after them. I think it's a big reason they won the game. And then defensively, I mean, I think we know they were problematic to the point that that's what led A&M to get this win. So all of that put together, I wonder sort of why that needed to come out now. And I feel like there's got to be something. There had to be something somebody was saying or, somebody that's had that's, frustrating trying to get back in good graces with, whatever it is. I don't know if it's like the Texas high school coaches, whatever it is, but I felt like he needed to make a statement somehow, some way, for some reason. And most people know where it's directed or feel like they know where it's directed, but that win should have said enough. I mean, I love Elco, and I understand that there's something that he felt like he needed to address, and he did, but either way, the way they won that game and what they did to win that game and some of the coaching decisions that he and his staff made, I mean, that was enough to impress me, G-Mac. I didn't need to hear anything else after the game.
Yeah, I'm not sure why you'd need to go down that rabbit hole. But maybe it's a veiled shot at Texas. I mean, you just never know. Texas is getting all this love and all this popularity, and they, are the number one team in the country for most of the year, and they got so much sizzle. And I feel like, let's be real, who's been talked about more this year? Texas or A&M?
Oh, it's not even close.
And has it been even remotely comparable? No. So I think that's probably maybe some of that where that's from. Like, hey, this is a real program. Like, we got all the things that you could want here to win. Who knows? I mean, I think it's probably just some frustration that maybe his team has been kind of playing under the radar for the last 7 weeks. I mean, I mean, people are paying attention, but they're paying attention now. It took people a while to kind of get on board, and I think that's perfectly fair. With how things started, you kind of cast them aside and, hey, allow them to play their way back in the good graces. But how many people have really been paying attention? I mean, look at the numbers. Look at the amount of people that have watched their games since the Notre Dame game. They're not great. So I do think that that's maybe something that will be beneficial for him moving forward.
No, not a ton of people have been on board with where this team, or even really just thinking that this team would get to where it is right now. And here they are, looking like one of the better teams in the Southeastern. I still don't know if anybody talks about them as being one of the better teams in the SEC. I mean, we know they are from the standings standpoint, but like, who's talking about A&M? Who's even putting them in the argument, Greg, of being the best team in the SEC? Nobody.
Well, I mean, they have the second best odds to make the conference title game. And they have the third best odds to win, or excuse me, the fourth best odds to win the conference title. So think about that. They're fourth to win the SEC right now, as far as odds. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think they're in a really good spot. I mean, look at and yes, are there really difficult games remaining? For sure. I don't think this is a time to, start throwing yourself a victory parade with a road trip to South Carolina, a rested South Carolina coming up next week. You still have a road trip to Auburn. Very difficult spot. I mean, most of your most difficult games this year have been at home. So now you're going to have to go into some hostile situations and get wins and challenging wins at that. So this week will be a tough one. Auburn game will be a tough one. And then you're back at home in the friendly confines to take on the Longhorns, which is a game that everybody and their brother's been talking about for a while. So it's going to show a lot of maturity to see how they perform in the 2 of the next 3 games on the road at South Carolina and on the road at Auburn.
Absolutely. And there's a lot that this team has that they can lean on. It doesn't just have to be one leg. I thought the linebackers were extremely active. I thought they played hard. I thought they showed that that's a group that maybe is one that they can lean on. Now, I don't need you stomping on guys' hands after plays, but other than that, I thought that group was one that was active, flew to the football, got the ball on the ground a couple of times. You got DBs that took the ball away. So there's still a few parts of the secondary that I don't feel like maybe are strengths of this team, but it's not just that defensive line. Yes, that sets the tone. That's the main portion of it. But I think there are other parts of this defense and this team that are showing you, Greg, that can give you championship level football.
I think the big thing for me is the offensive line. Like, have they just run into some average defensive lines, or is this the real deal?
They're a good group. They're getting better. Getting a lot better.
I mean, are they one of the top groups?
You had 2 substitutes come in this game too. Now, Crownover's played a lot, but he gets most of the run second half, and Fatherly played a little bit at right tackle, and then you had your backup left guard come in, but center played really well. Right guard played 61-55, been good all year. They've been really good all year. And then you get 17 at tight end. It helps you out a little bit. 84 helps you out a little bit at tight end. Like those guys are pretty physical. They'll get after you. So they are the most improved from start to finish offensive line in the league. And maybe part of it is I didn't know even if they were going to be good or great or decent. We just didn't know what they were going to be. And they're a group that can absolutely, I mean, it helps when you have a guy like Moss run the football. I mean, and Amari Daniels run the football. And Amari Daniels gets out there and lead blocks and, decleats a linebacker. But that stuff helps contribute to it. But yeah, that offensive line is playing pretty good football right now.
How would you assess the layers of the run game? Like, are they that much more dynamic with Reed running the football? I know Wigman has at times been super inconsistent throwing it, so I'm totally fine with them replacing him. But does Reed's legs in the run game, in your eyes, make them that much better?
I don't think it's just his legs as far as what he does. I think it's the threat of it really opens everything else up. And you have Amari Daniels who's got juice. You got Le'Veon Moss who's like a legit downhill runner that just like wants to break your face mask when he sees you trying to come up and tackle him. And so you take those two along with, some of the perimeter stuff that you had the capability of doing. And now all of a sudden, when you have that threat of that quarterback being able to keep it and break you down, I mean, you have to play it a different way. And it's one less defender that's coming in trying to take back a cutback run or trying to take backs out of the run away. And it gets guys on their heels just a little bit. You're not as able to play it as aggressive. If you do want to play it as aggressive like LSU did and kept deciding to attack the mesh late in games, well, then he's going to pull it and steal yards and have free grass. So I don't think it's that he is Nick Marshall or anything, but I do think the threat of it makes a good group of blockers, offensive line and tight ends, with a good group of backs that much more effective because I don't know how good the downhill passing game is consistently with either guy at quarterback. I know they have some receivers that are pretty good. I mean, Noah Thomas can make some plays. Barber's made some plays, but the actual passing game itself, I don't really view as dynamic. I mean, if Connor Wigman could do what he did against Missouri every game, this would be a different conversation. But that's happened once in 2 or 3 years. So I think the threat of it definitely opens some other things up and makes it more available and forces defenses to play you a different way because he's pretty quick. He's got that one down by the goal line. I mean, he ripped that thing out late. And I mean, he's got the ability to kind of work it a little bit to where he can make you wrong. And when you can do that, I think you can be a problem. So yeah, I think I do think he makes it different, because he's got a good feel for it and they have all the other pieces around it to be able to make it go. All right, when we come back, we'll give you a bad box score of the day. Shut it down for a Monday right here on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, 10:46 a.m. where I am, 9:46 where you are. Monday, October 28th, right here on Jocks 94.5. Going to give you a bad box score or two of the day. Wrap it up. But first, G-Mac, tell our listeners about B-Dry.
Well, B-Dry has been serving Alabama and customers across this community for 60 years. They continue to excel at providing you the solutions that will keep your basement and crawl space dry and keep that foundation strong, and they back it up with a life at the structure warranty. They also can stop all 5 ways water can enter your foundation, and to make things even better, they can offer it for 12 months interest-free. So you can get the job done right with the strongest warranty and the best price, 12 months interest-free and no payments by calling 942-1976 or by going online at bdryalabama.com.
All right, a couple of bad box scores of the day for you, as this is kind of where this entire segment first got started. And just wanted to give you a couple that I found quickly in college basketball, where some of the exhibition games that get going, this is where we first started sort of finding these games and giving you different ones. Florida Atlantic took out St. Leo 104-53. Over the weekend.
The Owls and St. Leo, they are the
Lions.
Dang. I was going to say Tigers.
Also, Arizona State went down
Sun
to
Devils.
Duke in exhibition play 103-47. Not really sure if that's the one you're looking for as far as the score is concerned. But, hey, this is where this whole thing got started. And this is, I guess, what these teams sign up for. And it's a way for you to be happy about your program moving into the season, is to blow out teams that aren't necessarily ready to face you. But some teams you would think that, they kind of should be competitive, and then they're not. But either way, I think Auburn got a win in exhibition play over the weekend, but was not a bad box score of the day. We will go to our Soldotna
Stars.
They had a big weekend.
Ooh.
Took on the Lathrop High School.
Ooh.
Oh, we've had them.
They're the Lions.
They are not.
No, they are the Icemen.
The Tigers.
The Malamutes.
Yeah. So close.
It was right there.
Now, if you recall, Malamutes got the win earlier in the season.
They did?
However, Soldotna knocked out the Malamutes 49-28 at Colony High School in Palmer.
Let's go.
The win avenged Lathrop's 35-28 win over the Stars on October the 5th. Lathrop, if you recall, won back-to-back titles in 2021-2022. They owned a 28-26 lead with 4:24 to go in the third quarter. Lokini Wong's 8-yard touchdown with 35 seconds to play in the third gave the Stars their game-winning score, and then they scored 23 unanswered. Wyatt Faircloth ran for 3 touchdowns on 18 carries, rushing for 136 yards, giving Soldotna their second straight Alaska Division II high school football state championship.
Let's go.
Oh, that was
That's
for
what
everything.
we do.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Soldotna now owns 14 overall state championships. Head coach Galen Brantley Jr. is now 13-3 in state championship games.
Let's go. Let's go.
Overall record of 34-4.
That's DeBoer.
Try that
right
on
there.
for size, Nick Saban. So Soldotna gets the ultimate bad box score of the day by winning a state championship.
Let's go.
And the Stars, they did it. They avenged their loss earlier in the season, and they get back-to-back state titles.
I'm proud of those boys,
Soldotna,
man. I'm
our
proud of those
chosen
guys.
sons.
Dynasty Brewing in the
battled
frozen
back.
north.
I mean, you face adversity early in the
frozen north.
season, and then you come back and get a state title. Pretty impressive, nonetheless.
I don't know why Soldotna isn't just. We just all need Soldotna gear. Where do we buy
For
it?
real.
I have no idea, but if you find it, let me know.
They're gonna do like
I'll grab some.
their championship parade is gonna be part of like the Iditarod next year or something.
I mean, I hope it's televised, whatever it is, wherever it is, whenever it is.
We need it.
Well,
So-
will they have to wait till spring? Because I
mean,
feel
you
like
thaw
it's
out,
about it's about to get cold up there and be that way for a bit.
They could have it this week, and they'll be done with it, and they'll get it going. So they'll be okay. But congrats, Soldotna. Also, keep in mind, fall, most critical season for preparing your lawn for a healthy, successful season next year. And as it heads into dormancy, Wayne's can treat this and prepare for the cold season ahead. When spring comes, it's going to be ready to produce that beautiful, weed-free green lawn. Sign up for Wayne's today by October 31st, and you'll receive the first month for free. GMAC, a lot of reasons for our listeners to call Wayne's.
Yeah, call them at 866-WAYNES-1. That's 866-WAYNES-1. You'll really appreciate everything that you get when you go and you work with Wayne's. Telling you right now, you only have a couple more days. Take advantage. If you don't go and get your lawn care signed up before the 31st, you risk not getting that first month free. So go to 866-WAYNES-1. Use the offer code JOCKS to get that first month free. You can also go online at callwaynes.com and let Wayne's continue to create your happy place.
All right, coming up tomorrow, we'll get into a couple of more games from the SEC nationally as well. A couple that we didn't get to today from the Southeastern Conference. I mean, that Arkansas offense, Greg, it looked pretty good over the weekend. I know it's Mississippi State. I get it. But, man, Taylor Green had it going. He was on point and making guys miss. I mean, he was breaking ankles all over the place. But Arkansas, they're going to be a handful down the stretch. I know they kind of had a letdown performance against LSU, but that's a team. You talk about a couple that could affect things down the road with what they're doing offensively. And, got Dubinion going a little bit on the ground. Love watching Braylon Russell run the football, physical back. They're going to be a team that has a little bit to say here down the stretch.
Oh, a lot to say down the stretch. They have Ole Miss at their place. They have Texas at their place. What more do you need to know that they're going to be a factor moving forward? They would not be a team I'd want to play right now, especially you catch them on the wrong day like Mississippi State just did. And we know Mississippi State's got challenges on defense. That goes without saying. But still, to play like that and perform like that as convincingly as they performed coming out of the bye, Arkansas might be a tough team to tango with down the stretch.
What did you make of Ole Miss kind of struggling with Oklahoma a little bit? They get the win 26-14, put up 13 in the third quarter, actually down 14-10 at the half, as Jackson Arnold on scramble drill is able to complete a ball and go up right before the half. But, I mean, what did you make of sort of some of Ole Miss's struggles in that game against an Oklahoma offense that's just been inept?
I would say that I'm not super concerned. The one thing I would say about that performance is it felt just a little bit lackadaisical. I mean, they had 10 sacks. So you can't be too disappointed, but I don't know about you, bud. Like, it wasn't great. It was fine. It was not elite by any stretch of the imagination, but I also know that they're probably already at this point looking ahead. Like, they need to get this one, but man, this is a very dangerous look ahead situation at Arkansas, because we all know, and I'm sure Ole Miss knows, that their only way back into the playoff picture is by beating Georgia in 2 weeks. So you got to win out, obviously, but I hope there's not too much focus being paid to Georgia, because there's a big hurdle standing right in front of them.
It was problematic for me. I mean, they still can't protect the quarterback. The inconsistency being able to run the football, 31 carries, for 69 yards. They actually put in some new run schemes in this game and just could not find a way to get it going. So I know you've been a little bit down on Jackson Dart at times this year. I'm down on that offensive line, and then now to be fair, you didn't have Trey Harris. And Caden Priestcorn made some plays. Jordan Watkins made some plays. Jackson Dart made some nice plays, but still, that's a good defense. But it did not look near as clean as I think it needed to look for Ole Miss if you're talking about them still having a shot to make the college football playoff. And they've got those games in front of them against Arkansas, against Georgia, and then Florida and Mississippi State as well. Appreciate Paul Finebaum hopping on today. Tyler Watts joining us today, recapping all the weekend college football action. As you know, we'll be back tomorrow, 7 to 10 a.m. Three-man front coming up to you next right here on Jocks 94.5. They're going to keep talking college football for the next 4 hours, and then Paul Finebaum takes it from there.